And now the command to start
Magic
engines.
words we've long awaited, ladies and gentlemen. The product and marketing manager of Ford Parts and Service Division, the Grand Marshal today, Mr. Ken Myers.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
And so they do. 42 cars which will race today here in Atlanta in this 500-mile Grand National Stock Car Race. ABC Sports presents live from Atlanta International Raceway, the Atlanta 500. This ABC Sports exclusive is being brought to you by Bud Light. Everything else is just a light. By Valvoline Motor Oil, where motor oil is not just motor oil. And by Dodge, setting new standards of performance. And now 42 cars warm their engines and prepare for the pace laps, either 2 or 3, depending on the posture of the race cars as they come around, which will precede the official start, the green flag, for today's Atlanta 500 race. It is the 4th race in the early season circuit of Grand National Stock Car races, which represent this nation's most heavily attended automobile racing series. You can see the pace car at the front of the lineup, and you will now be introduced to the 2 cars which will carry ABC race cameras through today's race. Car number 29, occupied by the great Cale Yarborough, is just on the inside of the 2nd row toward the front of the pack, and Cale Yarborough will be seen via the ABC Sports race cam throughout today's 500-mile race. Our 2nd camera is mounted inside the car of number 75, Neil Bonnet. Bonnet finds himself toward the back of the pack after qualifying perhaps a little more slowly than he might have been accustomed to, and should offer an interesting view as he tries to make his way through the pack early in the race. Hello again, I'm Jim Lampley, and with me our ABC Sports automobile racing expert, Sam Posey. Sam, early in the season, this an important 500-mile race. Quickly, let's set it up.
Very important, and there are 2 overwhelming favorites. You have Dale Earnhardt starting from the pole, and alongside him, Bill Elliott. Now, it may be almost more like a prize fight than an automobile race. So intense is the rivalry between these guys. Dale Earnhardt, winner of 4 of the last 7 races, the defending national champion, a natural aggressor, a man who hunts deer in his spare time, likes to stalk his prey. Bill Elliott, quite by contrast, winner of the Daytona 500, is a man more known for his speed than for his infighting. They start, as I say, from the front row, Earnhardt in a Chevrolet, Elliott in a Ford. I can't wait. It looks like a real good one.
Elliott and Earnhardt between them account for victories in all 3 of the races which have been held so far this year. And as Sam Posey mentioned, they will start in row 1. Now we look at the flag tower, and no green flag is out yet. So there will apparently be 1 more pace lap as the pace car pulls into the pits.
No, there are 2 pace cars, Jim. There's still the 2nd pace car out there, so the field speed is still being controlled by the pace car. We have word that the green will be waved the next time around.
Which gives us an opportunity, Sam, to set up the early part of the race, as car number 52 did not start the race, and that is the car belonging to Jimmy Means, who was back in row 17. So now Means joins Bierswale in the pits as they try to get in order to get back out on the track. And once again, you look at the field as they go down the back stretch, apparently headed toward a green flag this time around. Elliott on the outside, and on the inside, car number 3, Dale Earnhardt. Earnhardt unquestionably ranks at this moment as the top gun in Grand National Stock Car racing. But Sam, a lot of people expect that there's a possibility that Bill Elliott could repeat this year the kind of success he had 2 years ago in 1985 when he won a record 11 Grand National Stock Car races.
Yes, because except for the fact that Earnhardt is so skilled in the short tracks and the medium speed track, Elliott is rarely defeated when he runs fast on a super speedway like this. I see the pace car dive down, Jim, for the pit lane to start just moments away.
And because Elliott is from nearby Dawsonville, Georgia, this track, 30 miles south of Atlanta in Hampton, is regarded as his home course. So Earnhardt plunges toward the lead as they go into turn one on the very first lap of 328 circuits around this 1.522 mile track. It is Earnhardt on the inside as he pulls down the backstretch and now goes out high to take the lead ahead of Bill Elliott. Elliott holding on to second place in car number 9, and the field begins to stretch out behind them. Another car off the track, number 64, Connie Saylor. We are already down from 42 to 39 cars. They are about to complete the first lap, Earnhardt having established the lead. Elliott in second place. Car number 90, Ken Schrader, now occupying third, as Cale Yarborough has dropped back just a little bit.
You might wonder, how much does the lead really mean this early in a 500-mile race? The answer probably is not too much. It's a psychological thing. You do not want to be mired in the back of the pack. We see car number 83 coming into the pits. That's Lake Speed. Did so well at Daytona 2 years ago. I see him already putting the pace car out. There's a yellow flag, so we will see the leaders and the others slowing down. That is because of the Connie Saylor car, which is coasting to a stop outside of turn 2. You will start to see it in just a moment at the very bottom of your screen.
So they are on the third lap. After 2 green flag laps, the caution flag is out. First in the race. There will, of course, be several others to follow. Dale Earnhardt on the lead, Bill Elliott in second place, and we'll be back live right after this. We are back live at Atlanta International Raceway. Jim Lampley with Sam Posey in the booth as you see the cars continuing under the yellow caution flag. Work is going on in the pits. We have 2 pit reporters with us today. One is Dr. Jerry Punch, a legitimate MD from Bunnell, Florida, who also covers racing for ESPN and NASCAR's Motor Racing Network. The other is Jerry Gappens, assistant editor and publisher of one of the sport's major journals, National Speed Sport News. You will note that both carry the first name of Jerry, so we are going to refer to Dr. Jerry Punch as Dr. Punch. Let's go down to him right now.
Well, Jim, there were problems early on in the race for Lake Speed. His Oldsmobile sitting behind me on pit road began to miss. On the very first lap of the race, he radioed into his crew chief, Darrell Bride, said the car was very sluggish in turn 1. By the time he got back around, he was on 6 cylinders. You can hear the car behind me. It's missing horribly here on pit road. Tough luck for the Kannapolis, North Carolina driver.
All right, thank you, Dr. Punch. And in his reference to radioing back to the pit, Dr. Punch has touched on what I know you, Sam, believe to be one of the real critical elements in stock car racing.
It is the communication between the man in the car and the men plotting the strategy back in the pits, the chief mechanic and the people back in the pits. This is something relatively new to racing. Radios that really, really work well, and an exchange of ideas between the man doing the combat out there in the car and the guys with somewhat cooler heads back in the pit. In many ways, that communication may become the story of the race. They are once again about to go green after that period of yellow flag laps. They're coming down toward the start-finish line now, Jim.
And they will go green for this, the beginning of lap 5 in the race. So once again, the blue and yellow car at the front is that of Dale Earnhardt, number 3, winner of the last 2 races on the circuit. Second place belongs to Bill Elliott. Third place, number 90, Ken Schrader. And fourth place, car number 29, that of the great Cale Yarborough. And Yarborough's car carries one of our ABC race cams. There's a look, Sam Posey, from Yarborough's point of view.
Yeah, you see him diving right now into turn 3. You can see what he sees if you look to the upper left of the screen. He'd be looking just ahead of the car that's immediately in front of him. He comes off the turn here, and as they go into turn 1, let me show you about where Cale is looking. He's looking under the mirror right in about there. That's his vision of the track. He's not concentrating on the car that's ahead of him, nor is he concentrating at all on the instruments down here. He'll glance at those, but only occasionally. This is what it looks like at about 185 miles an hour on the straight.
And now we're going to pan the camera around backwards so you can see the rear view picture from Cale Yarborough's car.
Yeah, what he cannot see is when a car comes up on his right, and it's especially right and behind him. It's especially blind coming off turn 4, and there is where you occasionally see cars get together here at Atlanta. A guy comes up blindly on another driver's right as they're leaving turn 4, and they rub sheet metal. There is Mr. Yarborough hard at work. I see from the angle that he's turning the wheel that at this point at least the car is riding extremely stably, but look at how much he's having to turn the wheel. That means the car is doing what we call pushing The front of the car is sliding out more than the rear. It's a very stable condition for him, and probably as the track conditions change, Jim, during the race, that pushing condition may be ameliorated.
Connie Saylor, number 64, coming back into the pits after having briefly gone back out onto the race course. Obviously, Saylor continuing to have trouble. We call it the race cam. As you look at the two leaders, Earnhardt and Elliott, I should point out that it actually is a setup involving two cameras, one of which gives us the point of view of the driver and the other of which mounted on the passenger side of the car, or what would normally in your garage be the passenger side of the car, gives you a look at the driver as he works, and that was the second camera which showed us Yarborough turning the wheel. There are the 1 through 5 drivers at this moment: Earnhardt, Elliott, Ken Schrader, Cale Yarborough, and Ricky Rudd, lap 9 of 328. We've got a long way to go. And Sam, as we look at Yarborough's point of view, as we did a few moments ago, we should talk a little bit about this race course, which bills itself as stock car racing's only true oval super speedway. It is important to note that the turns are much longer than the straightaways. In fact, the vast majority of the time here is spent turning the wheel.
Yeah, the turns are a half a mile each, and the short straightaway is just a quarter of a mile. Notice how much Cale is turning the car. He's got that thing cranked way over, but it's also pretty stable. He's not having to control any slides. He flexes his hands a little bit there as you see him come back up onto the straight. The banks here, by the way, are 24 degrees, not quite as steep as Daytona, but steep enough to really contain the speed of the car. I mean, we think of an average speed of 170 miles an hour around an oval that's just a mile and a half long. It gives you some idea how much grip, how good the handling of the cars is in these bends where they're going about 162, 163 miles an hour.
And there was a time when some of the great old lions of the sport, notably Richard Petty, who's won 200 races in his career, would prefer what we call the high line on the track, keeping the car out near the outside wall as far around the circuit as possible. Here in Atlanta, and particularly in the newer group of drivers typified by Earnhardt, they want the low line down as close to the infield as possible.
True, and it's interesting, Petty right now is running a high line, but Earnhardt is, in a sense, making people come to him, making people play his game. I notice Elliott is running a lower line than he usually does. Earnhardt came up through dirt track racing. His father was a dirt track guy. He knows how to handle a car in a slide at 150, 160 miles an hour. He feels perfectly comfortable. Look at how far, incidentally, the two leaders have stretched out. Earnhardt feels comfortable down very low like that, and when the track begins to get greasy and oily, and it will if there are blown engines during the day or the temperature heats up, Earnhardt is comfortable sliding the car around down there, and the Richard Childress team for which he drives has built special engines that give him power when he's sliding down there low on the turn. Other people build their engines to produce horsepower at the top end, a surge of speed at the end of the straight. That's a little more typical, say, of the Elliott family. So you've got a nice matchup here in different philosophies, different kinds of abilities of these two very, very fine drivers.
Has the difference in style and approach on Earnhardt's part and his comfort with looseness given him perhaps an undeserved reputation for recklessness?
No, I did for a while, but I think now Earnhardt's record, defending champion, winner of the 4 out of last 7, he is highly respected. Meantime, Dr. Punch is in the pits with a report. Jerry?
What's the problem with the car, Lake? What's the problem? I can't hear anything you're saying. One second. What's the problem with the car, Lake?
We're not sure. There seems to be some kind of electrical problem that's just developed. You know, it gave us no indication whatsoever till when they dropped the green flag. The Wynn's Kmart car just sat there. I had to wave motion to the guys behind him to keep the traffic from running over me. But I'm not sure. It may be a problem internally in the distributor or something.
There is a backup ignition system they are changing to, the crew trying to get Lake Speed back on the racetrack.
Thank you, Dr. Punch. And of course, Lake definitely dropped the names of 2 of his major sponsors in that brief comment. They are sensitive racing machines, despite the fact that they look, at least in body shape, a great deal like the cars we could buy off the showroom floor.
But that is as far as it goes. They are pure racing machines. You see the leaderboard there with Earnhardt and Elliott substantially ahead of Ken Schrader, Cale Yarborough, and Ricky Rudd. Rudd making a very good run here at a track which he's been successful before.
6 through 10, you saw there briefly Davey Allison in 6th place, Buddy Baker in 7th place, as they begin to establish an early pecking order in what is going to be a long race. 500 miles. And at top speed, the cars will be traveling at somewhere between 165 to 170 miles per hour as they turn each lap. But during the course of the day, this race course will change. The cars will get a little bit slower, not perceptibly so on our screen, but certainly perceptibly slow to the drivers. And the ways in which they handle that particular progression will have a great deal to do with their success in the race. Next time around, incidentally, we're going to visit the race cam, which is mounted in the car of number 75, Neil Bonnet. Bonnet is currently running in 18th place. I mentioned before that we would get a chance to watch as he tries to pick his way through traffic. And look, right in front of him, there is Darrell Waltrip in his new car.
Straight, as you come off the fourth turn, every lap you need to glance at that flagman. Always look at the flagman, make sure we're still under green. You come on the flag stand, you're going down in the first turn, always look at the caution lights on the right side so you make sure there's not an accident over in the middle of the second turn and you'll run up on it. You dive off right in the bottom of the racetrack, the car really jumps around. It's really physical getting the car turned. Come up off the second turn on the back straightaway, you really sling out to the wall, let the car go where it wants to go. And the thing really eats the back straightaway up fast. You run up the back straightaway, quarter-mile straightaway. You go in 3, glance over the caution light, look all the way to the left, look off the fourth turn to make sure there's no accident there. Dive right in the bottom of the racetrack. Come up off 4. Car really got to be pinched down because it wants to run out at the wall real hard right there. Let the car have its head, run right out against the wall, right down the front straightaway, up on the start-finish line, and just do it over about 300 times though.
Just do it over and over about 300 times. You note all of the elements of concentration and attention which are necessary for Bonnet to get around the racetrack. And he mentioned the physical difficulty of steering the car. We should point out that this is a racetrack on which all of the drivers use power steering. Well, some of them might qualify without power steering. They have to have it to accomplish what they need to accomplish to get around this course 328 times.
Yeah, notice that both Neil Bonnet and the car in front of him, which is being driven by Darrell Waltrip, you see Waltrip's car on the left, that very bright day-glow color, car number 17. Waltrip has finally got a car that is the sort of proper mirror of his personality. Darrell likes to stand out from the crowd, he sure does on the track here. But both of those cars are sliding a good deal, in contrast to the way we saw Cale Yarborough's car performing a few minutes ago.
So we have finished 21 of 328 laps in the Atlanta 500, and Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott are still in command. We'll be back. We are back live at the Atlanta 500, still very early in the race with less than 50 miles having been completed. And you look at the leaderboard, which shows Earnhardt and Elliott ahead of Schrader, Ricky Rudd, and Cale Yarborough. 6 through 10, Buddy Baker, Benny Parsons, Davey Allison, Rusty Wallace, and Terry Labonte. So far, Earnhardt and Elliott have been far and away the fastest cars on the track. And Sam, we're going to get a chance right now to time a Dale Earnhardt lap, and it's worth noting that the drivers think not in terms of speed, but in terms of lap time.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, only the press really makes the conversion into speed at any track other than Indianapolis. You tend to think here in terms of not pushing your car faster, but shaving time off. Now let's time this lap of Earnhardt, who was the pole sitter, and we'll find out what he does now. Of course, the lap time won't be meaningful if he's held up by a back marker, but that car that he passed going into 1 didn't slow him up at all.
What is a good lap time? 32 seconds is about right, is it not?
Yeah, the pole went for 31.2. And hopefully, I mean, they've given us this great toy here, the stopwatch, and the thing we can draw pictures on the screen with. So let's watch as Earnhardt comes off the 4th turn. We'll get an idea early in the game. A 33.5 is 163. All right, he's 12 miles an hour right now off the pace that he qualified at. Now, what does that mean? That he's not trying hard? No, not at all. That the car is more conservatively geared, it's more conservatively set up, less likely to slide. You can hold on to a car that's sliding for a lap or 2 of qualifying. It's quite different when you're in a race and worried about the competition. Now let's see the interval here between Earnhardt, who we see there, and Elliott, 1.7 seconds. At this point, none of this, the intervals, where you stand, we saw Waltrip battling with oversteer, Neil Bonnet battling with oversteer. It's not too crucial because the race develops in stages. The only thing that could go wrong for a driver here would be if he fell back so far as to be lapped. but these men are just sorting out their car, communicating with their crew chiefs. They know that at their first pit stops, which are coming up, you see Lake Speed
Headed to
drawing
the
into the garage, yeah. But the drivers all know that at the first pit stop, they can change their car significantly. A guy like Waltrip, who's running at this point relatively far back in the pack, and this is Darrell Waltrip's, exactly, his younger brother, who won a race here yesterday in a different category of car. Not so lucky today. But anyway, a Waltrip is not troubled at this point. Nor is an Elliott or an Earnhardt overconfident. Let's put it that way.
The key really is to stay on the same lap with the leaders because, frankly, the way NASCAR rules work, allowing cars to bunch up under the yellow flag, as long as you are on the same lap with the leader, you have a chance.
Yeah, don't bust your hump until you have one. That's what it comes down to.
There, incidentally, is car number 9. The Bill Elliott Ford, and there is the Bill Elliott Ford that you can buy at one of the numerous souvenir stands which ring this raceway. There's an enormous amount of money which is made on the day of every Grand National Stock Car race by the various vendors and concessionaires who surround the racetracks, and some of them are in trailers out in the parking lot outside the racetracks. They go from race to race, some of them selling only souvenirs which relate to one particular driver. There's a truck out there which has all Bill Elliott memorabilia. There's another which carries all Dale Earnhardt memorabilia. And there is the leader, Dale Earnhardt, as he continues to make his way around, having led every lap since the beginning of the race. The defending champion in Grand National Stock Car Racing. And earlier we asked Dale Earnhardt how winning, and winning so consistently, has affected the mental makeup of his racing team.
Confidence, man. There ain't nothing like confidence. I got the confidence in that race team it takes to win. I know no matter what happens, they can come back and be a winner. We came back from a bad wreck at Richmond on Saturday and won the race on Sunday, and I just thought that was impossible after seeing the race car throw it bad as it was. You know, they've had all kind of hard knocks, and they come back every time. That's the key to being a champion, is to, you know, jump them hurdles, work every what it takes, and when it gets to...
We've often pointed out, Sam Posey, that great baseball players don't often make good managers. By the same token, Dale Earnhardt's car is owned by a man named Richard Childress, who himself struggled as a race car driver and has now become, certainly at the moment, a spectacular success as a race car owner. Do you think that a man who struggles a little bit as a driver has perhaps a better handle on all of the complexities involved in a team? As you look at Buddy Baker coming into the pit, obviously bothered by some complexity of his own. But to follow the point up, do you think that perhaps a Richard Childress has a better chance of being a successful car owner than, for instance, Cale Yarborough, who is making the transition into being an owner this year?
Well, it's so hard to say. You've got Junior Johnson, who's perhaps over the last 10 years the premier car owner and was one of the greatest of drivers. So it's hard to say. I do think that no matter what, you have to have, as your car owner, as your crew chief, a man who understands the problems that the driver is having and listens to them sincerely, or else you're just not going to move toward the logical cures for the problems at hand.
Now you're looking at the 5th and 6th place cars in the race. On the left, the car of the phenomenally consistent Benny Parsons, and on the right, the car owned and driven by Cale Yarborough, number 29. And now we will enter Yarborough's car once again to watch as he follows Benny Parsons around the track.
All right, here he is diving down into that turn. Now, the whole inside of the Atlanta Speedway is hollowed out. It's lower than the typical grade outside of the track. So the driver, now look as he goes down into the turn. You can actually look across and see most of the turn that he's heading into. And a driver's eyes will glance over there really quickly so as to make sure that there isn't an accident on the track. I mean, you're going over 160 miles an hour, and in a turn in particular in these cars which weigh 3,500 pounds, it's not very easy to make sudden motion. So his eye view, if the mirror wasn't blocking it, is more over in here than just straight ahead. Notice also the amount that he's moving the wheel back and forth. It's a busy job out there. Because of the power steering, the effort is not great, but remember, the car is sliding or almost sliding at all moments. So every little motion he makes with the wheel is critical. He isn't just kind of bouncing along as it looks. If he were to move that wheel just a little bit differently in any one of these turns, it would mean a spin. I think the main thing is, I asked Darrell Waltrip the other day, what is the most misunderstood thing about the coverage of racing on television and just in the print media any old way? He said nobody really understands how difficult it is. And in some ways, getting inside the cockpit has been a big help. But in other ways, it may make it look easier than it really is. We're not feeling, for example, the G-forces that these cars are subjected to and which tires the driver so much. We've got a yellow, Jim.
Because of a blown engine, which was that of the car of number 30, Mike Waltrip. So Mike Waltrip will be out of the race, apparently with a blown engine. Mark Stahl preceded him into the pits and out of the race. Buddy Baker's car has still not re-entered the track, and we'll be back live right after this. We return you live to Atlanta International Raceway for what may now be a slightly different race, because the yellow caution flag, which just preceded our last commercial, came out on lap 39. And since cars would normally pit at around lap 60, all of the leaders elected to go on into the pits. So there are slightly different cars on the racetrack now for Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott and the other leaders in the race. Meanwhile, we mentioned that Buddy Baker had a long sojourn in the pits. It's been 78 races since Baker scored a stock car racing win, and he may be headed for more trouble today. And let's go down to Dr. Jerry Punch to hear exactly what's wrong.
Well, Buddy Baker had an unscheduled stop. The two-time winner here at Atlanta brought his car in 2 laps before the yellow flag came out. He indeed had a miss in the car. They think they may have dropped a valve, lost a cylinder. He will try to finish the race today, but he'll be running at a disadvantage on only 7 cylinders.
L.Z. Wiley Baker Jr., Buddy Baker, son of one of the great names in the early days of the sport, Buck Baker. Meanwhile, the hot dog business heats up just outside the racetrack as the yellow flag continues on the course. And our other pit reporter we mentioned is the assistant editor and publisher of National Speed Sport News, Jerry Gappens. Let's go to him right now.
Here are the tires that just came off of leader Dale Earnhardt's car. 4 new tires on. Richard Childress, the owner of the team, said the car looked fine, it's handling fine, and the tires look very good. These tires, however, will not go back on the car. Each pit stop today, they'll put a fresh set on. Each tire, $179 to purchase. A set for almost $700 for 4. They'll go through 10 sets today. If they go through all 500 miles, a tire bill today of $7,000. Now, if you win the race, Goodyear will give you these tires free. If you finish second or back, you have to pay for them. So it's another incentive to win here at Atlanta today.
All right, thank you very much, Jerry Gappens. You see Buddy Baker's car being pushed out of the pits. Maybe he won't get a chance to finish today's race. And meanwhile, they go green now as the cars come back down the front straight. Green flag out, new tires on the leaders. That's a story in itself, Sam.
It is, and if you're looking at Earnhardt here, you'll see him literally overwhelming some of the cars that were down on the inside. Those are the cars that have been lapped. You see that despite the shuffle in the pits, 4 tires changed by both the leaders. They have re-established their supremacy. It'll be very interesting to see right off the bat if their 2 cars and Cale Yarborough's cars and the other in contention continue to handle roughly the same way they did up until that first pit stop. You know, Jerry Gappens made the point that the tires that have been taken off the Cale Yarborough car would not be put back on, despite the fact they've been run only about 55, 60 miles. The reason, in the old days, if you had a setup that was good, the tires felt good on the car, and you hadn't gotten too many miles on them, sometimes you took them off and you saved them in the back of the pits and you put them on again for that dash to the finish in the last few laps. But lately the strategists say, no, it's better. They measured the tires so carefully. They know so much about it. There's Kenny Schrader in 3rd place, just ahead of Cale Yarborough. So now they go for the advantage of the absolutely fresh tire. And a tire that's run only 40 or 50 miles has done its job for the day.
Ken Schrader in 3rd place, worth some discussion, 31 years old, Rookie of the Year 2 years ago. In fact, Schrader is from Benton, Missouri, and I think it's fascinating that 5 of the past 6 NASCAR Rookies of the Year have come from outside the Southeast, as the sport is becoming progressively more national with each passing year.
Well, you know, that is so true, and there are many fundamental changes that are going on in this sport right now. For example, the ages of many of these men, I mean, most of them are in their 30s, but listen to some of the drivers that are in their 40s. Waltrip, Yarborough, Gant, Parsons, Petty, Allison Baker, all in their 40s, due to retire not that long away from now. So the face of NASCAR racing is going to change. People coming in from different parts of the country, new blood coming in. The cars themselves, Jim, are much different than they were a few years ago. They're lighter, they handle far better, they make much more use of aerodynamics. They're far more sophisticated. I mean, all the front-running teams have liaison with the major Detroit manufacturers. They test in wind tunnels. This is not the sport that it was 15 years ago. And it says to me a lot, incidentally, about Richard Petty, who was a champion 15 years ago, that he stuck with it all through these years and is still competitive today.
Petty, like Parsons and Buddy Baker, is in his late 40s. A.J. Foyt racing at 52 is certainly an anomaly and not the rule. Darrell Waltrip is only 40 years old, but claimed to us earlier this year in an interview at Daytona Beach that he hoped to retire by age 45, and then, in the same sentence, said, but don't hold me to it.
Exactly. I think sometimes Darrell, who talks a great deal, and incidentally talks a blue streak over the radio all through the race, likes to hear what he says, and then he decides whether maybe that's what he believes or not.
Now there is Neil Bonnet as he dices with Darrell Waltrip. Bonnet at the moment in 17th place, so Waltrip also still biding his time after struggling to qualify. He had to make 2 qualifying runs to get into the field, and that's certainly an unusual experience for Waltrip, who's in a bit of a stage of transition this year. So for that matter is Bonnet, racing with a new team after having spent years with the Junior Johnson organization prior to his departure at the end of last season.
Well, they both raced with Junior Johnson last year. That's the interesting thing. And both these men, now back in the pack, dueling it out, are with brand new teams. Neil Bonnet with the team, the Raymock team that he drove 4 years ago and has come back to kind of a homecoming, and Waltrip with a new team that he's created on his own. They're having a good battle, and although we haven't had a good look at Neil Bonnet's hands on the wheel, we probably will have a look at that soon. Waltrip's car, as a result of changes they made during the pit stop, is a good deal more stable. I'm not sure about Neil's. Bonnet's car is still what we call oversteering, or it's a little bit loose, but it looks more stable to me. You see him turning slightly to the right, incidentally, on the straight. Even the straights here are not dead flat. I'd say Bonnet has improved his car significantly, Jim, in that pit stop. Notice there's much less circumferential movement of the wheel required by Bonnet now than before. Now, he has completed that pass of Waltrip and is now sighting Harry Gant in that green and white car you see right there.
Actually, it's Waltrip who moved ahead on the outside line. Bonnet is one of those who wants to adhere as tightly as possible to an inside line on this racetrack. He calls it a wrestling match, and you see him there going back down toward the bottom of the track.
Actually, I blew that completely. Waltrip definitely got the better of Bonnet on that. He went high. Reminds me, I know...
There goes Harry Gant.
Yeah, there's Gant. I know, Jim, you and I, both having children of roughly the same age, have played a good deal of chutes and ladders in our time. And when you're involved in traffic like this, that's the sort of thing that can happen. You think you're going great, and you're setting up to pass a guy, and then all of a sudden, you turn out to be in the slow lane, and 5 guys go by you on the outside. I'd say right now, what we're looking at is an average speed of 163, 64, top speed of 175. In the turns, though, in this dense traffic, high 150s, 159, 160.
A great deal of air turbulence surrounding the cars, drafting, the practice which has been so typical in NASCAR racing over the years and which became known to the general public as a result of behavior of these kinds of race cars, is not nearly as feasible a tactic now as it might have been 5, 6, 7 years ago, because the cars are so much more aerodynamic. Is that not true?
That is true. The art of drafting hasn't died out, but it's a finer art now. It's not as easy to get sucked along by a car. These cars are much smaller. They're cleaner. The airflow over them is much cleaner than it ever was before. Well, once again, we saw Neil Bonnet really struggling there briefly with the car, and that car is not as stable as I think he'd like it.
Well, it's going to be 79 races in a row in the illustrious career of Buddy Baker without a victory. And he's a gentleman who is always quite congenial after victory or after defeat. Right now, Buddy Baker, out of the races, standing by with Dr. Jerry Punch. Dr. Punch?
Well, Buddy, one of the early race favorites here in Atlanta, but you had to park it. What happened?
Well, I couldn't hear you. I'm going to just answer what I think happened. I think we dropped the valve or something because the car was running real good. We started moving up good. I called Cal and we're moving on up. I think we were back up in 4th or 5th, and it just started a dead skip, and I really don't know what it is. I hate it for everybody from Crisco because we thought we had a real good chance to run up front all day, and it just didn't work that way.
Well, that's Buddy Baker, very disappointed. He had a great run at Daytona, finishing 4th, but he has a short day here in Atlanta.
A short day for a tall man, 6'5", 215-pound Buddy Baker. We'll pack it in and watch the rest of the race. And there are the two leaders on the screen, Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott. You get the feeling, Sam, just toying with each other and feeling each other out in this early stage of the race. I say stage. We mentioned that the pit stops come at intervals of between 60 and 65 laps, so there are at least 5 of them during the course of the race. And that means that a man might drive what amounts to, in a subtle way, 6 different cars through the course of the day.
Oh, I wouldn't say in a subtle way. It could be markedly different one to another. Incidentally, it's neat that the battle for the lead is heating up a little bit. Elliott is running close enough to Earnhardt right now to get plenty of aerodynamic buffeting and interference. In other words, he is making a point here to Earnhardt, if Earnhardt cares, let's put it that way, that yes, he can run with him. And you know, when you're racing in front of your home crowd, never discount emotional factors. Elliott doesn't want to show himself to be being blown off by Dale Earnhardt. However unimportant it would be at this stage of the race, you want to show those home folks that you can do it. You can stay with the guy that in some ways is being called the hottest hand in racing today.
Of course, cars themselves show no emotions, although people show emotions about them. Bill Elliott's car is a Ford, and he is so prominent, and his use of Ford machinery so well known that he is veritably wrapped in the corporate insignia of Ford at this stage of his career. Dale Earnhardt's car is a Chevrolet, and this despite the fact that many of the drivers commented at Daytona Beach earlier this year that they felt that Ford was perhaps a little bit more advanced, particularly in its approach to the aerodynamics of this sport.
Yeah, but in the aerodynamic issue, it's probably more on the very, very fastest of tracks. You see Elliott making that high line start to work. We're seeing a very characteristic racing situation as they come off that 4th turn, almost brushing the wall. I would say this is the beginning of a bid by Elliott. You can certainly see the crowd reaction, Jim. I mean, they've known that Elliott was hanging back there. Now they see that their man, so to speak, and he's a very big favorite here, can carry the attack to Dale Earnhardt. What I was going to say is, I don't think, in some ways, the aerodynamics in terms of the amount of aerodynamic drag that a car has, that's the drag that will affect its top speed, is a very big factor here in Atlanta. What is a much bigger factor is the amount of downforce that a car's body can give it. And I think you saw the crowd there beginning to standing up and reacting to this battle. I think that the Chevrolet is a good match at this stage for the Ford in terms of overall downforce.
100 miles into a 500-mile race, and the Georgia crowd on its feet as they watch their man, Bill Elliott, stalking Dale Earnhardt of Kannapolis, North Carolina. We are now going to take a brief look at the battle for 5th and 6th. On the inside, on the right-hand side of your screen, that is Terry Labonte, and the man to the outside of him, Rusty Wallace. Both among the hot young bloods in the sport. Labonte a bit more established. He won the overall Grand National Championship a couple of years back.
I talked a moment ago about how much Darrell Waltrip talks in his radio during the race. Labonte has taken over his seat on the Junior Johnson team, and by contrast, the Junior Johnson men tell me that Labonte never says anything. He's absolutely silent.
Well, we've stationed our 2 pit reporters at opposite ends of the pit to cover the whole field, and so far, just by luck of the draw, the action is taking place on Dr. Jerry Punch's side of the line. So let's go right back down to the doctor right now. Meanwhile, out on the track, before we go to see Dr. Jerry Punch, there is car number 19, piloted by Derek Cope, which you saw briefly touch the outside wall, then rebound onto the inside wall, and the caution flag is out once again. We're going to take another look at what happened to Derek Cope about 100 miles into the Atlanta 500. And there he is down on the apron, Sam.
All right, you see him, it's pretty clear. At this point, he is completely out of control, headed for the wall. We did not see what triggered his accident. Now he's headed probably still at 20 or 30 miles an hour at least. But such is the construction of these cars that they can take a hit like that, absorbing, as I think you saw it do, the impact. And probably, with my fingers crossed here, I'm predicting that the driver is probably okay.
Elaborate racing roll cages. Certainly there are no safer vehicles in big-time automobile racing than Grand National stock cars.
Boy, is that right. I mean, they are just in a league by themselves, and any of the drivers that you talk to realize there's a substantial difference between being a Grand National driver and, say, a Formula One driver at Monaco. You see the leaders all coming in now, although it is only 25 laps since the last yellow, and there is no need whatsoever for them to be here for fuel, obviously. It's just, once again, to improve the handling of the car, and it looks as if Derek is just fine.
Well, you wonder why Bill Elliott would change a thing, as well as his car was running, and with perhaps another 40 laps to go before he would have to pit. But both Earnhardt and Elliott and the rest of the leaders are all in the pits right now under the caution flag. 64 laps down, 264 to go, and we'll be back. As we return live with the caution flag still out at the Atlanta 500, you can see that we have a new leader, number 27, Rusty Wallace. And Sam, there's a very good reason for that.
He didn't pit. The other leaders did pit, but it was a strategic decision by Wallace, whose car was probably handling very well, to get a little glory, get a few points and a little extra money for staying out there.
All right, now Dr. Punch is standing by in the pits with another driver who's out of the race, Greg Sachs, and let's go to him now.
Greg, a short afternoon for you. What happened?
Well, I'm awful disappointed. We had that Valvoline Pontiac really running good. It appears we must have dropped a valve during there, and it's a big disappointment. Just like to say hi to Brian, Paul, and Rachel. We'll see you tonight.
This driver reported the biggest upset in NASCAR history back in 1985 at Daytona. He won in an unsponsored car with a makeshift crew, but he wasn't so fortunate here today.
All right, thank you very much, Jerry.
Have you noticed, Jim, that each driver that our men in the pits has interviewed so far have mentioned in their third or fourth word the sponsor of their car?
They're rather well trained.
You called attention to that, but it is really overwhelming here in this world of NASCAR racing now, how much these men are spokesmen for their sponsors.
Well, and that touches on a point which many of the drivers spoke to us about this week, which is that there was a time when it was sufficient for a driver to be a good race car driver, and that simply isn't enough now.
In fact, you kind of wanted to be gruff and grumbly, didn't you? You know what I mean? A guy who might be fast with his fists and not a good guy who'd pump a sponsor up.
Out of the race so far, Lake Speed, Michael Waltrip, Buddy Baker, Derek Cope, and Greg Sachs. So at least one car which might have been given at least an outside shot at contending for a top position or maybe even winning the race, that of Buddy Baker, has gone down along with several others.
Okay, of course, I said that they didn't need fuel. By that, when they pitted just now, by that I mean, they weren't about to run out. But it is strategically advantageous to stop each and every time and top up with fuel. Now, Jerry Gappens has a story for us in the pit. Jerry?
We're with Barry Dobson, a crew chief for Rusty Wallace's car. Barry, a little bit of different pit strategy from the other people. Why'd you stay out?
We didn't stay out. We stopped and got 4 tires. The Kodiak Pontiac's running very well. They started this thing at 2 o'clock, so we're ready to go home.
Rusty's saying anything about the track conditions?
Yeah, the car's a little tight right now. This place usually loosens up. We're working with tire stacker and bite, trying to catch up with it.
Okay, Barry Dodson reports on Rusty Wallace's condition out on the track.
And thank you, Jerry Gappens. We apologize for throwing you the curveball on Rusty Wallace's strategy. It didn't appear to us that he had gone into the pits, but Sam, obviously he got in and out so fast that we weren't able to catch him. And there goes the Derek Cope car, which is leaving the race.
Well, you know, the history of this form of racing is littered with problems the scorers have, not catching somebody pitting or crediting them with an extra lap or something, and you can see why. I mean, I'm not trying to get us off the hook. We blew it, but
I appreciate the effort.
Right. But when everyone does come in and you've got 40-odd cars pitting, it does get chaotic. and it's easy to have sympathy for the errors of that kind that are made here.
In fact, there have been numerous disputes after races in NASCAR racing having to do with precisely that issue, lap count. It is often questioned, and even in this day of computerized scoring in automobile racing, it remains something quite difficult for stock car racing officials to do. Now let's listen for a while as Rusty Wallace talks about the degree to which established drivers, big names in the sport, made him feel good by accepting him and accepting his newfound prominence as a stock car racer.
People like Cale Yarborough, Buddy Baker, Bobby Allison, drivers like that. When I go to Daytona, it used to be when I first showed up, you know, those guys wouldn't even let me near them. And now they're lining up behind me to go draft with them. And there's car owners coming over to ask me to drive for them in 1987 or 1988. I'm all locked up with my deal. I'm not even thinking about it. But, you know, those people do come up and they ask those questions. It makes you feel good. I'm the new kid on the block. I'm the younger generation. I'm coming up. They're going to be car owners, and they're looking for people like us to do what they're doing. I feel like I'm very well accepted. I respect those people. I've learned an awful lot from them, and I'm never ever going to knock them. I'll tell you that.
Rusty Wallace is 30 years old. He was Rookie of the Year on this circuit in 1984. He is from Fenton, Missouri, as is the 1985 Rookie of the Year, Ken Schrader. Wallace has since moved from Fenton, Missouri to North Carolina to be closer to the heartbeat of the sport, but he has done well and finished third in the last race on the circuit at Richmond, Virginia.
You know, having that pit stop by Rusty Wallace and getting back out in the lead, think of what that does for your crew. You see, the crew is very much a part of the race here, after all, for the seconds that the car is in the pits, never mind all the strategic decisions made by the crew. In this case, they showed that they could service that car faster than the Elliott men, faster than Earnhardt's men, at least this time out. And I think that gives them a burst of confidence. I'm sure it gives Rusty Wallace a sense of confidence that the men back waiting for him when he stops are going to get their job done right.
The car on the inside there, number 62, Steve Christman, has been lapped, as has the car just behind him, number 77, Ken Reagan. The cars which are on the lead lap are those on the outside of the formation. Wallace in first place. He's led for 5 laps now. Behind him, Dale Earnhardt, and then Bobby Hillin Jr., Bill Elliott now with a car between his car and that of Earnhardt. And you see the rest, and there's the king, Richard Petty, number 43, winless since July 4, 1984, when he won his record 200th NASCAR race, the Firecracker 400 in Daytona Beach, Florida. They go green, and Wallace now tries to hold his position in front of Dale Earnhardt.
Wallace has some very good memories of this track. He ran here as a rookie with the Roger Penske team and finished second. But it looks as if Earnhardt, who just is so strong when he runs that car low on the track, you might call it downstairs. Upstairs would be a high line. Wallace somewhere in the middle right now, but look at Earnhardt right on that line, down inside. His car handling well there, and then accelerating strongly off the turn. Interesting you mentioned Richard Petty, who's running very well right now. He has been winless for a while, but he was third in the Daytona 500 a month ago, which is really a marvelous finish for a man of his age at this stage in his career. And he may yet win another race. I think you can count him out. By the way, look at that giant gap pulled out by Earnhardt in just a lap.
34-year-old Dale Earnhardt on the lead. Right now, let's go down to Jerry Gappens, who will bring us up to date on Derek Cope's crash.
Derek Cope, the first major incident of the day. What happened?
Well, we had a problem in the third turn down there. The car felt real good, starting to work the push out, and I was watching Darrell in front of me, and I could see some smoke, and all of a sudden the car came up from underneath me like we hit some water or oil, and there's nothing we could do, but, you know, I don't know exactly what we hit, but something for sure.
You're a rookie, Derek, on this circuit, but you're a veteran out in the West Coast. Did inexperience have anything to do with it?
Well, I don't think so. You know, the Tri-Pack 4 was running real good. The push was coming out of the car, and I felt like I started to catch Darrell and Davey, and, you know, all of a sudden there was something I hit because the car came out from underneath me without, you know, no cause at all. So it's just something that happened.
Okay, Derek Cope okay, but out of the race.
Got the sponsorship pop in so fast, I'm not sure it had full impact.
Yeah, Bill Elliott has now moved past Rusty Wallace into second, so we have resumed the order that we've had throughout. And incidentally, really, Jerry Gappens, interesting there. He really almost impugned Cope for a second there, you know? I mean, he said, did inexperience have anything to do with it? There have been times when I've wanted to ask that and haven't had the nerve.
Well, so we can't fault Jerry Gaffins for nerve. He's already outstripped us on that score. Good job. And you look at Dale Earnhardt, still on the lead, and now once again being chased by car number 9, Bill Elliott. We are in the second 100-mile section of this 500-mile race, and in the pits, the owner of Dale Earnhardt's front-running car, Richard Childress, stands by now with Dr. Jerry Punch. Doctor?
Richard, are you concerned a little bit about the pace that Dale's been setting early on, or have you thought about telling him to pull the reins in and save the car a little bit?
No, I asked him early kind of what RPMs he was turning. He told me, and he said it wasn't abusing the car right there, so he's just going to go ahead and run it right there.
It seems like this team is almost bulletproof. Last week at Richmond, the car came apart, and Saturday in a practice session, you rebuilt the car overnight, and you had momentum on your side. You came back and won the next day. Do you feel like this has got to be your year?
Well, you know, we're just doing it, taking it one race at a time, doing the best we can.
That's Richard Childress, the car owner for Dale Earnhardt.
All right, thank you, Doctor. And Sam, all of us who have tachometers on our car are familiar with RPMs. What RPMs is he likely to be turning?
8,000 roughly at the end of the straight, and probably about 1,300 less than that, say 6,700 in the turns.
And that compares, for instance, with a Formula One Grand Prix car, which would be
about 11,000.
All right, we'll be back with more exclusive coverage of the Atlanta 500 after this commercial message and a word from our local stations. First the commercial, then the station break. This ABC Sports exclusive, the Atlanta 500, is being brought to you by Monroe Shock Absorbers. For shocks and struts, America rides Monroe. By Vicks Sinex. With Sinex, you feel better in seconds. Plus, it keeps you breathing for hours. And by Quaker State Motor Oil. Quaker State, people, reaching for the best. Leaders now after 82 laps. Exactly 1/4 of the Atlanta 500. Dale Earnhardt on the lead. Bill Elliott in second place. They have been in those positions through most of the race. Rusty Wallace third. Terry Labonte fourth. Ken Schrader has remained in the top 5 since the very beginning of the race. Richard Petty sixth. Ricky Rudd, Kyle Petty, Phil Parsons, and Jeff Bodine. On the lead, the yellow and blue car is the Chevrolet of Dale Earnhardt. On the far right-hand side of the screen, as we widen out, you can see the car chasing him in second place, number 9, the Ford of Bill Elliott.
Now, the track, if we could express it as having a kind of, or describe it as having a kind of personality, which changes during the day. At first, of course, and you see Cale Yarborough there, he has dropped back somewhat into the pack. You see him running with that distinctive car of Darrell Waltrip's just on the left of your screen now. We have Dr. Punch with Jake Elder, who is the crew chief on Cale Yarborough's car. Doctor?
Well, they have a problem on Cale Yarborough's car. You mentioned the car dropping back. This is the man right here that has to diagnose the problem. That's Jake Elder, the crew chief. And Jake talking to Cale to come by this time. He's been watching the car from back here at the fence as it makes lap after lap. And Jake, what is the problem with the car? Did you get a mismatched set of tires?
Well, we made that pit stop a while ago, and we had a wheel wasn't tight. We had to come back in. He got all behind that traffic. And I think we got the stagger messed up a little bit right now. He's a little bit too tight.
Well, the stagger is the difference in circumference between the rear tires and the front tires. This is the man right here that crewed Morgan Shepherd to victory in this race a year ago. Today, he is behind the pit wall for Cale Yarborough.
And working for a brand new racing team, and now we visit the inside of the office of that racing team to watch Cale Yarborough work.
Well, let's see how much he is working, and if we can get a feeling for the way he's working the wheel as to the way the car might be handling. Now, he's turning the wheel well over, about the same way he was at the outset of the race when it was, oh, look at that, look at that! What's going on there? Cale in trouble. There's no doubt about it. He was overworked there for a split second. Let's hope he's okay. You saw a man lose control of his car. We weren't looking out the front to know what triggered it, whether it just plain got away from him, but that, Jim Lampley, is a unique moment, I might say.
A remarkable escape by Cale Yarborough. You see him gunning it back into turn 3 as he heads on around the racetrack. Number 71 down on the apron was Dave Marcus. He appeared to be one of the cars which had spun. It's hard to tell who caused the conflagration. Harry Gant's car is stalled in the middle of the backstretch. And there is a look at Gant's car as it is.
That isn't Harry. in there still, is it? I don't know. They usually, in getting out of the car, remove the netting. I don't see it removed. Could that be Harry's helmet? Let's not speculate. But yes, it is.
Yeah,
isn't
he's
it?
moving around. You can see him moving his hand.
But he obviously was, at the very least, dazed heavily by that blow. Cale Yarborough, I think there was a crash in front of Cale, and he was maneuvering to avoid it. He spun in the process. What an amazing piece of driving. Part genius, part luck. I think a little bit of Danny Sullivan maybe alive in Cale right at this point.
Did he flatten the rear left tire, Sam? It looks to me as though that tire is a little low.
Does it?
I'm not sure.
Doubtless he flat spotted the tires. When you slide sideways, you wear them down flat. The car probably feels right now as if it's running over the ties of a railroad track.
Well, he obviously didn't flatten it because he's staying out on the racetrack and has not come into the pit.
No, but there's going to be a protracted yellow here, Jim. So he may stay for a couple of laps. We'll see him pit for sure during this yellow.
All right, now let's go back to Harry Gant. You can see now that officials are on the scene and working to free him from the wreckage of what was, moments ago, car number 33.
Immensely popular driver, Harry Gant, who of course we saw from the camera-mounted car of Neil Bonnet earlier. All right, we're going to see what came on us so suddenly. We're going to see again Cale obviously turning hard there in the second turn. Look at him turning it hard to the right, back to the left. Can we get any hint of whether he's spinning? I think he's coming out of the spin now. And he obviously looks to the right, which was to see Gant. So Cale was actually well down on the inside of the track toward the end of that maneuver, because he looked to his right to see Gant, who was down on the inside of the track. There is Cale, obviously, right there, fighting a big
29.
slide. Cale is pitting now, incidentally. Now,
just missed the rear end of Waltrip's car.
Yeah, he fought the slide, but he couldn't hold on to it, which surprises me. So there's the second point. Now,
all right, you saw a car sliding sideways on the outside of the track. You saw him go by car 71 of Dave Marcus on the inside.
We
Here's
saw
another look.
Parsons going slowly on the left of our screen there. All right, there is the impact by Kulwicki, the Rookie of the Year. Perhaps he is the man that triggered it. That's Parsons' car on the left.
That's Marcus, 71. So Kulwicki was involved.
How many cars are we adding up? 6, 7 right now?
At least 4, and seemingly more than that. We know that Gant was involved. We know that Kulwicki was involved. We know that Parsons was involved. And car number 1, which belongs to Ron Bouchard, was also involved.
And we know that Harry Gant, all is not well there. We also saw an exceptional bit of work by Cale Yarborough. All right, now let's see Neil Bonnet's view of the same incident. You see those bars, incidentally, they keep the windshield, if it breaks, from caving into the cockpit. I don't see much of anything. I hope Neil can see more than I can. That's the smoke, evidently, and haze from the spin of the cars in front. He spun, obviously. Gets it back in gear, gets her pointed right. Neil Bonnet had a camera in his car years ago at Darlington when we were covering that race. He had a spin there too. He also emerged unscathed from that. We saw him driving away. So these guys do not spend their afternoons lightly.
All right, there have been a variety of pit stops, and you see Harry Gant walking away. That's a good sign. Harry Gant looks pretty good as he walks away from the car. There have been pit stops. Bobby Allison momentarily took the lead, and now he has gone into the pits. The leaderboard on the infield is listing Ken Schrader for the moment as the first place car, with Elliott second and Earnhardt third. And let's go down to Dr. Jerry Punch.
Here are the tires that came off of Cale Yarborough's car. The left front tire, you can see, is completely separated and pulled apart. Now, the tire had no defect at all. Nothing wrong with the Goodyears, but when he spun, the friction of the car at 165 miles an hour literally pulled the rubber off the casing. All 4 tires were flat. Here's the left front. Here's the left rear. The right side looked the same. Cale Yarborough now having 4 tires changed. He had a cracked windshield, a little bit of sheet metal damage. He's back on the racetrack.
There are the cars under yellow, Sam.
That is the term flat spotting that I used. You saw it literally flat spotting the turn.
Could not have been more graphically demonstrated. Schrader the leader, Elliott, Earnhardt, Labonte, Wallace, still sorting things out after a several-car crash. We'll be back. We are back after 92 of 328 laps in the Atlanta 500. There is a look for the moment at the leaderboard with cars still traveling under the yellow caution flag on the track. Very quickly, as you watch work on Neil Bonnett's car in the pits, scores from the NCAA basketball tournament. Well, before we get those scores, we'll take a look at the inside the car view of a pit stop in progress. Can't tell whether Bonnett's car was in some way involved in the crash or not. Southeast Regional, Georgetown comes from behind to beat Ohio State. Buckeyes go home. LSU leading Temple 37-33 at halftime of a Midwest Regional contest. And we look at Cale Yarborough going back out onto the track. Now, to the best that we can examine so far from our tapes and what we've learned by watching pit stops, apparently there were at least 7 cars involved in that spinning incident which took place on the backstretch. One of them, that one, number 33, the car of Harry Gant, unquestionably out of the race. Others, 22, Bobby Allison, 1, Ron Bouchard, 7, Kulwicki, 35, Benny Parsons, 29, Cale Yarborough, 18, Tommy Ellis. And that brings us to the subject of fear, Sam.
Well, obviously, to a certain extent, fear is part of every driver's life, and it was fascinating to me to talk with many of the top drivers this week about their fears. Frankly, it's what caused me, Jim, ultimately to retire from racing. I got to the point where I was afraid of the race before it began. Let's hear what they have to say.
You know, if anything happens, it happens so fast, you know, you haven't got time to be scared, and then when it's over with, there's no need of being scared. And I guess that's basically how I do it. But, you know, if some cat goes in the corner a little faster than I do, it's not, and I let off earlier, it's not because I'm scared. I've got a line there that I try to figure, you know, what you can get by with and what you can't get by with. And that's really what determines drivers and better drivers or drivers that's not as good. They've just got a finer line and they just work closer to that particular line.
Wow, you know, if I ever feel fear, I won't get in a race car. I've made that commitment to myself. If I'm ever afraid, if I ever hesitate to lift this leg up and put it in that window and sit in that seat, I won't do it. I will not get in. We're always concerned. And there is a difference between concern of having a problem and fear of that problem.
Sure. You know, you've driven a car and, you know, someone runs a red light or you see a stop sign all of a sudden you didn't realize was there and you go through the stop sign. That fear or whatever that is in the pit of your stomach, we feel the same things on the racetrack.
I don't think I've ever actually been scared while I was in one. I've gotten out of a few and got scared, you know, when I looked back and saw what happened. But I don't think you really have time to think about it when you're out there.
Yeah, I have felt fear. I think anybody that doesn't feel a little fear is really not telling the whole truth, I don't think. I think anybody that, you know, that wants to live and that should be a little bit afraid of something sometime.
Well said by some of the greatest authorities in the world on the subject. Out on the race course, Cale Yarborough has had a new windshield inserted into his car, I'm told. Well, no, he didn't get a new windshield. Obviously, they did a little work perhaps in the pits, but that windshield is still there.
They had the tape on there before, and, you know, the question is, can he really see well through that? The answer is he probably can. It's odd. I've driven a lot of cars with broken windshields like that, and also with a lot of oil on the windshield. The moment he's going to have a problem, Jim, is going to be if the sun comes back out. Unfortunately, it's under the clouds right now, but if it comes out late in the day and it's low, it's going to bounce off those little cracks, and it's going to be very tough for him.
Well, meanwhile, he is getting a signal from his pit to come back in as they're holding up a sign for car 29, and there goes Cale directly to the pit, following orders from his crew, and we are told that a new windshield is going to go into the car right now, but that is not something which can be done so quickly that he'll have a good chance of remaining on the lead lap. Let's go down to Dr. Jerry Punch with another man who was involved in that incident, last year's Rookie of the Year, Alan Kulwicki. Dr. Punch?
Alan, you just stepped out of the infield hospital. First of all, are you okay?
I'm fine.
What happened over there?
Well, I guess something broke in my engine. The thing blew and just locked up coming off the second corner, and it just locked up. There was nothing I could do with it, and it just started a chain reaction behind all the cars behind me.
Now, you were in the hospital. Harry Gant was in there as well. Is there a status on Harry?
He's walking around under his own power. He's fine, and I think it hurt the cars worse than the drivers in this case. You know, thank goodness that no one really got hurt. I'm sure Harry's going to be fine, and it was disappointing for us to happen because, you know, we were running real well in the Xerox Ford Thunderbird, and we were moving up the whole race. The car was running well, but it's just one of those things. We're just going to have to fix it and come back next time.
Alan, we did a piece about drivers being afraid. Do you think about fear out there when the car is sliding, or are you too busy?
No, I was really quite busy. I did what I could, you know, to not let the car come back up in front of traffic. And you know, as bad as it was, it could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. And you're really too busy doing what you can to stay out of trouble to be scared out there. If you're scared, you shouldn't be out there.
That's Alan Kulwicki. Let's go up the pit road and Jerry Gappins.
Jim and Sam, when you talk about fearless, you have to think of A.J. Foyt. A.J. Foyt was also involved in this accident. He had a spin, and right here you see one of the tires that came off A.J. Foyt's car. He ran over some debris and cut it up, but A.J. was still able to drive the car back to the pits. All 4 tires, as a matter of fact, had to be changed, and we spoke earlier of flat spotting. Flat spotting is this right here. You'll see the flat spots into the tires, and this shows, and they're spinning, and this is what rubs them flat, and they're no good. Another $700 down the tubes here, but AJ says that's okay. These tires weren't working very well on the car anyway. So AJ Foyt is back out with a new set of tires. These are done.
There he is in car number 14, the same number which, of course, has identified him for these many years in his kart racing career.
He will be coming to Indianapolis this year, a race, of course, that we both are looking forward to immensely, for his 30th try at that race. Quite remarkable.
So counting A.J. Foyt, and I'm told that there's some body damage to the right side of Bonnet's car, there are at least 8 cars, which we've now specified as having been involved in the incident on the backstretch. If you look at a graphic listing of all those cars which we know to be, at this moment, out of the race, including last year's Rookie of the Year, Alan Kulwicki, and veteran Harry Gant, who's been unable to finish any of the 4 races this year after a rough year last year.
Speaking of Indy, incidentally, Michael and Sandy Andretti had a son that they named Marco just the other day. So Mario is a grandfather. We'll see the Andrettis in action when we cover the kart race at Phoenix on April 12th. Looking forward to that immensely as well, and congratulations to them.
Indeed. 22 yellow laps in the race so far, dramatically slowing down the average speed, and we have completed 97 green laps, so well into the race. So far, the most significant thing which has happened was the backstretch incident which you saw several laps ago.
But I think none of the leaders were substantially affected, so in some ways it's been a hiatus, it's been a moment to slow down, and yet I think we may see the essential complexion of the race about the same.
Halftime in the NCAA's Eastern Regional is Florida, this year's Cinderella team. The Gators lead Purdue by 2. And we are going green at Atlanta International Raceway as the debris has finally been satisfactorily cleared from the backstretch incident. And Kenny Schrader in car number 90 will see now how long he can hold off number 9, Bill Elliott, and number 3, Dale Earnhardt. There goes Elliott to the inside and right by Schrader, and here goes Earnhardt as well.
All right, and this is the first time all day long that Bill Elliott has headed up Dale Earnhardt. Am I not right? So this is a moment for the fans of Bill Elliott to be excited about, but more importantly, it'll be interesting to see. Elliott could not or would not pass Earnhardt, whether Earnhardt, who I billed at the top of the show as a very aggressive, infighting kind of guy, won't make a bid on Elliott and try to get back in the lead.
Fascinating that he continues to hold that image of an aggressive, infighting kind of a guy, and yet in 25 of 29 races that he competed in on the circuit last year, he finished with the car running. That's a remarkable percentage, is it not?
Yeah, and going with that, by the way, he has a deceptive style. I mean, he has this image in the pits and in the garage as a guy with a short fuse. I think not really a deserved image. But in the car, and I don't know if we can really get a look at this or not, Dale Earnhardt has the most extraordinary laid-back style. He lies back as if he was in one of those lazy boy recliners or something, with his head lolling back. He's the most relaxed man in there. We see Petty, of course, who has been running somewhere between 6th and 10th most of the day, is now up into 5th and moving very, very well. That, of course, is a delight to see. He was not involved in any way in the accident. But Earnhardt, it's nice. There's some paradoxical things about Dale Earnhardt, and I think it's what keeps everybody guessing. You know darn well he is aggressive. You better not put your nose in the wrong place at the wrong time. On the other hand, he'll fool you with his gentleness.
Is he a markedly different man now than he was when he won his first Grand National Championship in 1980?
There's no doubt about it. He used to be called Ironhead. Dale Ironhead. And those days are gone. He's a very savvy competitor. He's a very mature and often very generous man.
Another man who's undergone a bit of a metamorphosis is the man in front of Dale Earnhardt, and that, of course, is Bill Elliott. In 1985, he had as great a year as any race car driver's ever had in this sport, and the result was that he became a huge public figure.
Pretty much. I don't think things have changed any as far as I'm concerned. I still perceive the things I want to do. I try to take things one step at a time. I try not to let anything bother me, that's out of the way. I try to take my racing very seriously because that's what I'm trying to do right now, and I feel like that I've not changed much at all.
And of course, as you noticed, the assertion there on Elliott's part is that he is the same person now as he was several years ago, but he isn't leading quite the same life. Meanwhile, the battle for 4th place, and Richard Petty is right there in the thick of it, along with Kenny Schrader.
Petty must be just delighted to be in the headwaters of this race. It's the kind of track, quite fast, which he is immensely good at. In the past, he has won here repeatedly. He has won 6 times, second only to Cale Yarborough. So although these wins are some of them 15 years ago or more, he has a confidence he would love to have with his crew chief, Dale Inman, who was his crew chief in his glory years and is again his crew chief, a rebirth of that confidence that he had before.
It's been a good year so far for 49-year-old Richard Petty. 3rd at the Daytona 500. He's finished running in every race so far. He's in 5th place here and stalking Schrader, Labonte, Earnhardt, and the leader, Bill Elliott. We'll be back. We bring you back live to the Atlanta 500 at the Atlanta International Raceway in Hampton, Georgia, about 30 miles south of downtown Atlanta, where the leader is the man from Dawsonville, Georgia, up the road. Awesome Bill from Dawsonville, Bill Elliott. Behind him, Dale Earnhardt in 2nd place. Those 2 cars have dominated leadership in the race since the very beginning. 108 laps down and 220 laps to go. Ricky Rudd is a man whose name we have not mentioned much, but who has been moving rapidly through the field and for a moment had attached himself to the rear of Richard Petty's car as Petty chased Kenny Schrader, and he has been doing very well in his progress toward 6th place, so we'll keep an eye on Rudd as the race continues to develop. Elliott and Earnhardt on the screen, and we're still sorting out the details of that multi-car spin and slam on the backstretch from several laps ago. Right now, Dr. Jerry Punch is standing by with a report.
Harry Gant has just left the infield care center here where he's been checked over and found to be all right. The only major injury, or injury at all, a laceration across his tongue. He had his mouth packed full. He had some bleeding. He could not talk with us. He came by and shook my hand, winked, said he was all right, but he's going back to the garage area to change and head home.
So apparently there were no major injuries as a result of that mishap on the backstretch. I'm told that that is not only apparent, but it is quite graphically clear and the truth, and that once again is a testament to the safety of these cars.
Earnhardt, if you notice, is beginning to press his attack on Bill Elliott, and the rear of Earnhardt's car is a little bit loose. It's sliding a little bit. Incidentally, Harry Gant is 47 years old. You hate it when a guy of that age, which isn't old, it's just old for a racing driver, takes a shot like that. It takes a little bit longer to recover. But now watch as they go into turn 3 with Earnhardt running very low. Now watch as they come off the turn. If this slower car that they're lapping doesn't affect it, watch Earnhardt's car. See it slide a little bit like that? He is starting to really work that car hard to close up, and to close up fast on Bill Elliott. That's a psychological thaw as much as anything else, because you know it's overheating your tires, but it is comforting to remind another man that you can come from, say, a second and a half back right up there in a split second and then knock on his bumper.
Incidentally, the car which they both passed on the inside of the track, you saw there, the red one, number 22, was that of Bobby Allison, whose front right side was damaged during the course of that mishap on the backstretch, but who has remained in the race. And there goes Dale Earnhardt surging to the lead. Is he going to hold it? Yeah.
I think so. They raced like this at a slower track last week at Richmond, lap after lap after lap, dull handle to dull handle, as they say here in the South. And now here comes Elliott back, or at least Elliott trying the high line. Now, he is probably receiving word from his pits of how each lap time, what each lap time is, and he's comparing that to the lines that he's taking on the track and the technique that he's using. Now, let's just see at this stage in the race exactly how fast they are going. We will time them from the start line. They're in the middle of the back stretch now. Actually, they're coming around to turn 4 just now. Now, earlier we timed them at a time of 33:50. Here we come. And it'll be interesting to see after the blown engines, after the crashes, we're halfway through the race, roughly, if the track has slowed up. Clearly, the battle, the intensity between the leaders has not changed in any way. But the story about the track may have. And if it is slower, we'll start to explain what that probably means to the drivers.
Then we want to get into the subject of precisely what statements Elliott and Earnhardt might be making to each other with their racing behavior at this point. Earnhardt crosses 33.3, just a little bit quicker. I think he had less problems with traffic that time around, so the car may in fact be performing just a little better right now.
It's cooler. You know, I think that's a factor. I think the engines are starting to run better. Look at the cloud cover. We had sun at the start, but it clouded up. And let's have a look at that. You can see it's very high, but it means that there's no intense heat bearing down. And there's a formula, by the way, for the reduction in engine horsepower based on ambient heat. Every 3 degrees of ambient heat costs you about 1% of horsepower. That can be significant in lap time. It can rob your 600 horsepower engine of, say, 10, 15 horsepower, and that will translate into several tenths of a second.
Well, we've talked so much about the adjustments which can be made in tires to accommodate changes in the race course. Are there engine adjustments which can be made to accommodate changes in the weather?
No, not during the race. You're pretty well stuck with that. There is Petty. This is the race for 5th and 6th. Petty in 5th on the left of your screen, car number 43, one of the most famous cars in competition, and Jeff Bodine trying him on the high side. Very uncharacteristic. Usually Petty's on the high side. And we have Jerry Gappens down in the Petty pit with a report. Jerry?
We're with Crew Chief Dale Inman. Dale, Richard started 17th. He's up to 5th, battling with Jeff Bodine right now. Is he saying anything about the track? Is it fast, slow, or what?
Well, our car's a little bit loose. We just haven't been able to get it tight enough. But right now, it's the Earnhardt, Bill Elliott show.
What's Richard saying on the radio about the track conditions?
Well, the car, we had a good set of tires. We had a good set of tires a while ago, and the car run pretty good. But right now, we've changed the wedge, and this license test not as good as what we had before, but we're still working with it.
When you say you changed the wedge, what do you mean by wedge?
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
When you say you changed the wedge, what do you mean by wedge?
We just put a little bit more weight on the left rear wheel.
Okay, very good. There you hear about Richard Petty's pit.
Jerry, let me try to explain. I know it's hard to hear down there what he means by wedge. The car does not rest all of the weight on the 4 tires equally. And by adjusting the springs in that car, which you are allowed to do, a man can dive into the cockpit during a pit stop and actually adjust the springs you can change the way the weight rests on the wheels, and it has a substantial effect on the way the car corners. Dale Inman is something of a master at that. I would like to have asked him about why it is that Richard has departed from his high line, and I think the answer is if the rear end of the car is sliding around, he can't afford to run up high on the track.
Fascinating insight into the psychology of the Petty camp, too. Jerry Gappens was giving them credit for the bold move up through the field, and Inman purely discounted it and said, no, this is Elliott and Earnhardt's show, as if to say nothing other than first place is really of any significance.
Yeah, and yet, you know, we've talked about Earnhardt on the left and Elliott on the right so long. We felt from the beginning this is the way the race would develop. But in a split second, this is motor racing. An engine can blow, they can become involved in somebody else's accident, even if it wasn't one that they themselves triggered. So the complexion of the race could easily change, and somebody running 4th, 5th, 6th, none of these men are a lap behind right now, could easily suddenly come to the fore. You see Davey Allison in a crippled car. I mean, obviously, aerodynamically, he has, Bobby Allison, not his son, Davey, but Bobby Allison. Obviously, he does not have the top speed. He has a great deal of aerodynamic drag. But the key factor is that right front wheel where the damage is done, is it out of alignment? If it's out of alignment, the car could be a total bear in the turns. It does not look bad in the turns, but it seems that the wind is out of Bobby. Yeah, it doesn't look good. Glad I'm not in there. It has a kind of axial movement. And look, there's excessive camber, I think, on that right front. That tire should be standing up a little bit straighter than it is.
Well, it helps that the man behind the wheel is one of the most skilled race car drivers in any variation of the sport to be found anywhere in the world, but right now he's working a little harder than he hoped to when he came here earlier today. And there once again are the leaders, Earnhardt in car number 3 and Elliott in car number 9. We are still just a little bit short of the absolute halfway point in the Atlanta 500, and we will be coming back after this commercial. We are back, and there are the standings 1 through 5 at this stage of the Atlanta 500. Earnhardt, Elliott, Labonte, Schrader, and Bodine. 6 through 10, Petty, Wallace, Rudd, Davey Allison, and Kyle Petty. One more basketball score from the NCAA tournament, Southeast Regional. Another potential Cinderella, Southwest Missouri State leading Kansas by a deuce at halftime.
You know, I spoke of the idea that I think psychologically, at this point in the season anyway, Earnhardt's a guy that likes to lead. And yes, we saw Elliott lead for a while. But when Earnhardt decided to press the attack, Elliott let him go. I mean, that doesn't mean he's going to let him go at the end of the race. It means that he doesn't mind cruising through most of the 400 to 450 miles that precede that dash at the end. He doesn't mind going through that in second place. So something in the makeup, the psychological makeup of the Dale Earnhardt team with Richard Childress, his owner and mentor down there in the pits, and just at this point, they like to be the guys out front. I can't blame them a bit. It's working for them.
A two-race winning streak, which Earnhardt brings into this, is a mark of tremendous success. A 3-race win streak, if he were to win today, would be spectacular. A 4-race win streak would be historic. It doesn't often happen in this sport.
No, but a 4-race win streak actually has happened a couple of times. Somewhere deep in my notes, I'll dig that out for us, because Earnhardt, were he to win 3 today, would start to be able to look at that possibility. All right, now, as we come around, he's Earnhardt in turn 1 and now what they call turn 2. It's really one turn at either end of the track. But as he comes up into turn 3, I'm going to start our stopwatch here and see how long it takes him to get through that turn. These turn times being so critical here. And then we'll compare that time perhaps with somebody running slightly behind him. This is Dale Earnhardt in the half-mile long turn. We'll time him right there as he comes off the turn. Forget it. I don't think I saw, I didn't, I'm going to reset the clock and try it again. The problem, I didn't see the line properly as he was coming off of that turn. My fault.
This is fascinating. I'm really enjoying watching you try to do this.
Well, all right. Earnhardt, however, is passing some cars here, so it may not be so representative as as I would hope. But this is what the racing people do. They get out there and they time the cars in. All right. Oh, now I operated the thing.
Yeah, you pressed the wrong button. We're going to have to retrain you for timing turns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, the racing people, of course, do this correctly. They go out to a turn, and, oh, sure, I think, Jim, don't you? Let's give this
Yeah, we do want to try it again.
Three times.
It's too much fun.
I can't fail 3 times in a row. Plus, Earnhardt has a pretty clear run at the thing this time. They get out in the turns and evaluate the handling of the different cars, and you can then separate the way they're handling from the horsepower. Right, 10.9 seconds. Now, that's just an abstract figure. And on the next lap, let's see if we can find, say, Richard Petty. He's back in 5th or 6th, and make a comparison with that 10.9 speed of Earnhardt's.
There is car number 43 in Petty blue.
All right, he's about half a lap from our timing trap. But this way, you can evaluate not only the handling of the car, but also the horsepower, because obviously if the turn times are very quick and the lap time slow, you can presume you're really losing a lot of speed down the straightaways. Petty coming up into our trap, which is turn 3 and 4 here, which is almost half of the track. Now, Petty's using that high line up there. That is his preference by far, and right there we see that he has lost 1/10 of a second in what is roughly half of the track. 1/10 of a second on that lap to Dale Earnhardt. Now, if he loses the same 1/10 at the other end of the track, and he loses a little tiny bit in between because he's come off the turn slowly, you might say he's 2.5, he might be 1/4 of a second a lap slower. Doesn't seem like much. Every 4 laps, he's a second back. You know, every 8 laps, he's 2 seconds back, and that's just about how far back of the leaders Petty is right now.
And by the end of the race, it might be equivalent to the distance between Randleman and Kannapolis, which are the respective hometowns of Petty and Dale Earnhardt.
But that is racing. It's these small fractions. A little bit of a long way to get to that point, but I think you get the idea.
18th place, 1 lap down, still carrying our ABC race cam, Neil Bonnet in car number 75. And here is what you see from the onboard camera in the words of Neil Bonnet himself. He will tell us now precisely what it is he sees and we see as we look through this camera and his perspective.
Well, you're seeing the driver make adjustments in the car from one lap to the next. If my car is perfect, I don't turn that wheel very much. I run down the corner and very little turn and I get through the corner. If my car is a little bit pushy, I snatch that wheel around, I make it break the back end loose and I make it turn. If it's a little bit loose, and I got to play with the wheel a little bit, getting it down in the corner. When you're dealing with the level of drivers, you talk about Cale Yarborough, Richard Petty,
you want to show the
Walker,
instruments?
they can make that race car do what they want to if it's not wanting to do that. You have to override the characteristics of the race car, and to do that, it's not an easy thing to do. If I could go down and turn easy, I'd love to, but sometimes it's not doing what I want to do, and I have to snatch that race car around. I jerk the wheel, I make it break the rear end loose. It's kind of like that jockey coming in that stretch. When he gets the whip out, that horse is going to do what he wants to do, and you're seeing that guy get the whip after that car in every corner just about.
And now let us give you a brief tour of the technology of race cams. 2 cameras in each car, 1 behind the driver, controlled via these control instruments, which are used by our 2 cameramen, Ed Martino, whom you saw right there, and Bobby Hammond. They use these, what we call joysticks, to operate the camera functions and switch between cameras in the cars on orders from our director, Larry Cam. The signal travels up to a helicopter, 2,500 feet up in the air, then down to receivers on top of a crane, and then to the truck, and finally out to you, and it's all, to me, impenetrable magic. And now we're going to dissolve the race cam 2 in the car of Neil Bonnet.
What do you suppose it would be like to be sitting there, not actually driving the car yourself, and yet experiencing all through the race what the driver sees? If we could, let's have a look at those instruments. You heard me anxious to show those to you there on the lower left of the screen there. This is, well, we've just pushed a little bit past them. In Neil Bonnet's car, the tachometer is the left-hand most instruments, and the rest of them are all arrayed to the right. The water temperature gauge, water temperature is there, oil pressure is there, oil temperature is here, fuel pressure, which gets very important if you think you're running out, is there, and that's an amp gauge out at the end. Now, obviously, the driver, he rarely looks at those. Hopefully everything is all right. It's only if something began to go wrong with the car that he glanced down at the instruments. And, of course, he knows what he should be seeing on those instruments if everything is all right. Now, Dr. Jerry Punch is waiting in the pits with a report. Jerry?
Well, we're in the garage area with Dave Marcus. As you can see, the car behind Dave is pretty heavily damaged. Dave, you're trying to repair the car. What are you doing?
Jerry, someone blew an engine over there coming out of 2. I don't really know who, but my guys hollered caution, but I still couldn't miss the oil. I seen Cale sliding, but it was difficult to miss the oil. We've bent the entire front suspension. I have no steering, so we are replacing the steering pitman arm, the idler arm, the steering cross shaft, both left and right-hand tie rod ends, and on the right side, the upper and lower ball joints and control arms.
You might ask why a driver would go to all that trouble. He's some 20 laps down, but there's $2.5 million up for grabs in the NASCAR point fund this year, and Dave Marcus wants to get his share of it.
The perseverance of the driver quite apparent as Dave Marcus prepares himself to enter a race he has no chance to win, but which he may yet be able to finish with the car running. You look at the leaderboard, 1 through 5 and now 6 through 10. At the front of the pack, Earnhardt has put some distance between himself and Bill Elliott, but something is coming up pretty soon which has not happened in the race. I don't believe that the leaders have yet had to pit under a green flag. All previous pit stops, if I'm not incorrect, have taken place under the yellow. And right now, according to our calculations, Earnhardt and Elliott are about 5 laps away from facing the prospect of having to pit under the green.
So this will be the first time that the crews have had to perform really on the clocks, where it's had a dramatic effect on how their man is placed in the race. It also may affect what they choose to do to the car. In other words, you'd be less likely to change all 4 tires, which naturally takes a little bit longer than changing 2. But you would certainly refuel the car, top it fully up, and you would most certainly still have time for a change to what we talked about earlier, which is the cross weight in the car. So you will be able to see the teams making some changes. I see Earnhardt running low, and I think Jerry Gappens is in the Earnhardt pit. This is the first of the pit stops under the green, Dale Earnhardt. Jerry?
And the crew awaits now. Here comes the jackman over the wall. Dale Earnhardt comes in under control, and now the crew goes to work. Perhaps the best crew in stock car racing. Dale Earnhardt takes a cup of water. Right side tires are going on. It looks like they're just going to do right side tires, no left side tires. 11 gallons of fuel on each can are dumped in. It takes 2 cans and he's away. A very good stop for Dale Earnhardt.
And meanwhile, Jerry Gappens, there goes Bill Elliott. You saw Elliott's car pulling just to the outside of Earnhardt's as Earnhardt began the pit stop, and those 2 pit stops appeared to my eyes to be roughly equal.
They were both about 15.2, 15.3 seconds. And yes, I think the gap remains roughly what it was on the track. It's funny, it goes off so automatically, like clockwork, that it diminishes really the role of each of the individuals who performed those pit stops. That was very hard work down there, and yet each man of the 5 over the wall doing the work, here's Richard Petty, did his work perfectly.
All right, we will watch the Petty pit stop as he pulls into position. Hitting the mark, incidentally, is not the easiest thing in the world to do. It takes some driving skill just to come in and put the car right on the right spot every time.
Well, it would be easy if you came in slowly, but obviously the idea is to continue at 170 miles an hour to the last split second, which means backing off way out there in turn 3 to get these pretty heavy cars slowed down at just the right moment.
Pretty fast pit stop for Petty. You saw Rusty Wallace pulling out along with Petty, and right now 148 of 328 laps down in the Atlanta 500, and pit stops taking place. We'll be back. We are back, and you look at what the gentlemen in our control truck are looking at as they choose the pictures that we show to you on this telecast of the Atlanta 500. Of course, they're too embarrassed to allow me to identify them, but the director was on the left and the producer was on the right. The leader right now is Ken Schrader, who has not yet taken a pit stop, nor has Jeff Bodine, nor has Terry Labonte. That explains their presence at the front of the pack, while drivers who have already pitted, including Earnhardt and Elliott, have now been shuffled toward the back of those on the lead lap. There are many cars on the track which are no longer on the lead lap. The cars which have a chance to remain competitive with a chance to win the race are those which are on the lead lap. And among them is the man in car number 90, Ken Schrader, who was the Rookie of the Year in 1985 and was regarded as having a shot at winning the Daytona 500 before that race this year wound up with a highly creditable 7th place finish.
You saw Terry Labonte make a very nice move there, passing Jeff Bodine for a position. You know, it's men like this who, anything should happen to Elliott and Earnhardt, who may be disputing the lead at the end of the race. They have had an extraordinary, well, Labonte's making a move. He will, if he gets by Schrader here, have picked up 2 places in 2 laps. So the Labonte car, number 11 there, is running very nicely at this stage, right at the end of a long time out there on the track. And just prior to pit stop for him. You know, this is a hard time for drivers, Ken, because if there's been anything wrong with your car, and Bodine incidentally just went in the pits, you haven't had a chance for a long time to do anything about it. No yellows to come in, to relax, to think about it, and physically it's very tired. Schrader slowing, nothing wrong, he's headed for the pits. So we're seeing Labonte stretch his luck a little bit. There comes Kenny Schrader into the pits.
But if for instance, as Schrader makes this pit stop, and we're going to go down to Dr. Punch just a moment, if, for instance, a yellow should come out at this moment, it would be a tremendous break for Terry Labonte. Let's go down to Dr. Jerry Punch.
Here's Kenny Schrader, the leader, bringing his Ford Thunderbird in. They hand him a cold drink. Have the right side of the car jacked up, changing right side tires. That first 11-gallon can of gasoline is in the car. They have it on the clock. Bob Johnson, the crew chief, orchestrated off the jack and down and away. Good pit stop for Kenny Schrader.
Yeah, and Schrader drives, I know this sounds sort of silly that it would be a big deal. He drives very well out of the pits. Some drivers, in their impatience, get their wheels spinning while the car is still up on the jack. They drop the jack, and the car sometimes breaks a half shaft at the rear, an axle. And in this case, Schrader, despite obviously his great impatience, was careful and had a good stop. Here's the view from the inside of Cale Yarborough's car. He has not pitted, so Mr. Cale Yarborough finds himself once again in the lead at Atlanta, but we know we're going to see a pit stop from the inside of this car, as Cale is not truly a front runner at this stage because of his misfortunes earlier.
Well, and you can see that the new windshield has been placed on the car. Cale can see just fine now, but what he sees is a field which is in front of him, at least operationally at the moment. As we say, he is in the lead, and that is because he has not yet taken a pit stop.
Now, his car is handling almost exactly the same way it was at the outset. And I know I talked to Cale about an hour before the start of the race. He said, I know my car is going to push at the beginning, that is, say, the front wash up against the wall, but I hope the track will change enough to make the car become a little more neutral. And it may be becoming a little more so now, but I don't think so. I think he's still got a pretty bad push up against that wall. Well, notice how much he's turning the wheel there. He can't even seem to get the nose down onto that white line where I think he'd like to be. Cale still has not had the changes of track and chassis that would make his combination just perfect.
The former turkey farmer from Sardis, South Carolina, one of the most congenial and appealing men to be found anywhere in automobile racing.
I got to admit, I got his autograph today for a friend, but I sort of fantasized that it was for me for a second, and I'm not ordinarily an autograph kind of guy, you know, but I thought, if anybody, maybe Cale would be the guy to get one from.
I think you're going to autograph that turn clock for us by the end of the day. Certainly you've made it your own.
I'm not doing very well with that. Well, practice makes perfect.
Cale's lap speed, 34 seconds the time, at about 161.153 miles per hour. That is significantly slower than laps for which we have timed Dale Earnhardt and Bill Elliott a little bit earlier in the race. Another look from inside the car of Cale Yarborough, and right behind him is Dale Earnhardt in what has appeared throughout most of the day to be the fastest car on the track, and that is the car of Dale Earnhardt. And incidentally, as soon as Yarborough goes into the lead, then Earnhardt, or into the pits I should say, then Earnhardt will reassume the lead. And when Earnhardt takes the lead back, the man in second place behind him will be young Davey Allison. And in third place, it will be Bill Elliott. And there goes Yarborough into the pits. Let's go down to Jerry Gappens.
And the Jake Elder-led crew now waiting for Cale to make his stop. Cale comes in under control. The crew goes to work. Full gallons of fuel going in, 11 gallons in each can. They have 2 cans going on. Right side tires are now being applied. Again, it looks like they're going to leave the left side tires alone. Cale getting the clean windshield. The crew comes back over the wall. 5 men allowed across the wall, plus a fuel can man. So 6 guys in all across, and Cale is away. Another thing you might want to put in your notebook, Jim and Sam, is the fact that on that last pit stop, or series of pit stops, Dale Earnhardt got 60 laps on that last fuel. His crew says they can go a little bit further if they have to. Bill Elliott's crew said they went 65 laps on that last load of fuel. So that might have a lot of bearing on who wins this race when we get down to the nitty-gritty at the end.
Very good point, Jerry Gappens. How significant can that be? Well, Jeff Bodine tried to win the Daytona 500 earlier this year by gambling with the near-empty fuel tank. Didn't quite make it, wound up in 14th place. Incidentally, we saw Cale Yarborough shaking the right hand during that pit stop. Is that a sign that he's been working harder than he likes to keep that car turning?
Yeah, it's the angle. You saw how much his right hand is having to come over the top of the steering. It's down almost against the left door. The result is that the pad of your hand there, close to your wrist, becomes sort of anesthetized as you push against the wheel. That's not all, incidentally. That can happen in a race car of that kind. Now watch Cale. See, his right hand is just, it's out of the picture. It's so far over. And when you've got it way over there, it just shuts off some of the circulation to the hand and the fingers itself. You can also, incidentally, anesthetize your right leg because of the vibrations coming out of the transmission tunnel against which your right leg rests.
Well, Cale Yarborough has dropped back among the also-rans for the moment, and the leader remains the man in car number 3, Dale Earnhardt, being chased at this moment by 26-year-old Davey Allison, by Bill Elliott, by Ricky Rudd, and Rusty Wallace. We return you live to Atlanta International Raceway, ABC Sports coverage of the Atlanta 500. I am Jim Lapley with Sam Posey in the pits, Dr. Jerry Punch, and Jerry Gappens. There is the leader in the race, Dale Earnhardt, in car number 3, the man who has won the last 2 races on the NASCAR circuit and 4 of the last 7, and is the defending Winston Cup champion, significant of the overall championship in Grand National Stock Car Racing. You saw positions 1 through 5 as Earnhardt leads young Davey Allison and Bill Elliott, and we are about 10 miles past the halfway point in the race as you look at a final from the NCAA's Eastern Regional. Florida upsets and eliminates Purdue, and for the moment the Cinderella Gators move on to play the winner of the Syracuse game. Meanwhile, out on the track, we have settled in, and we are being told that after a correction from NASCAR scoring, we can now call Bill Elliott the second place car. No longer is it Davey Wallace. So the leadership of the race remains just the way it has been pretty much since the beginning of the day. Earnhardt and Elliott, there were only a few laps in which Elliott led. Dale Earnhardt, for the most part, Sam, has seemed to want to keep his car out front.
Yeah, but I think during this phase of the race, even if Elliott wanted to lead, I don't believe he could. It seems to me he may have a set of tires on there or a setup that is not matching the racetrack very well. The teeth has really gone out of Elliott's battle right at the moment. He's well back. Let's time that gap, if we might, between the leaders. I'll pick them up on the backstretch. There is Earnhardt going by, and there's Elliott, 3.6 seconds back. Right at the moment. We'll see. I think that gap has been steady for the last 5 or 6 laps.
And we mentioned earlier the difficulty of scoring these races, the error which we had earlier participated in, which put Davey Allison in second place, was a lap count error. We are now told that Allison is 1 lap behind the leader, so he never really was in second place, and we get that word from NASCAR Race Control. Dale Earnhardt is 34 years old, a 2-time Grand National Stock stock car Winston Cup champion, lives in Kannapolis, North Carolina. His father, Ralph Earnhardt, was a race car driver in this sport back in the 1950s. Right now, let's go down to Dr. Jerry Punch in the pits.
We talk about the chassis adjustments that can be made on these cars. There are three basic ways to change the chassis. You can go with a stagger change, changing the circumference of the tires. That's more like fine-tuning the car. For example, if you're watching television, changing the stagger would be like going up and adjusting the color or possibly the tint. You can adjust the wedge. That's a major chassis adjustment by screwing wedge in and out of the back of the car. There again, if you're watching television, it'd be like going up and changing the channel. Then again, the rear spoiler of the car. There's a wrench they have to slide over the rear spoiler. They take it and will bend the spoiler up or back. That's if the car is getting some turbulence, some interference from other cars on the racetrack. You bring the car in, put this wedge wrench, or rather the spoiler wrench on the rear of the car, bend the spoiler up. That would be tantamount to possibly pushing the automatic fine-tuning on your television.
Well, you know, an interesting thing, Jerry, about that spoiler adjuster, it's not really covered in the rules. And earlier, Jim Lampley, you were talking about the aerodynamics and the turbulence of air and all the subtleties. There are a great many things about NASCAR racing which are not visible and yet which are very crucial. There's the old joke that the rule book is thick enough, but the real rule book, which is unwritten, is twice as thick. And I can also tell you that the way the air moves in and around these cars, which of course is invisible to the naked eye, is as much a story of why they're fast or slow as the engine horsepower or the handling or anything else.
It's interesting also, as you pointed out to me earlier today, Sam, that there are inner aerodynamics as well as the aerodynamics outside the shell of the car. The air flows through the car as well as around it, and that too has to be dealt with by the designers of the car who deal with the question of how fast it can make it through the air.
Well, big factor. After all, the air goes in the nose of the car, over the radiator, back out. It goes in and out of the wheel wells. Let's see what the interval is now between Earnhardt and Bill Elliott, who's coming up. We'll see. It has grown. It's grown 0.6 of a second in the last 4 laps since we retimed it. So my sense that Elliott was not able to attack or even maintain his position would appear to be correct at this point. Now, is it significant? I mean, he's a little over 3 seconds ahead on a track which to lap Elliott, Earnhardt would now have to gain another 27 seconds or a little more at this stage of the race to get around. So no, it probably isn't too significant still, unless it means that for some reason the Elliott team, and this is highly doubtful, is starting to lose the combination, a sense for how to make their car run, or there's something in the way they geared the car or something about the engine that isn't performing 100%. They're probably fine, they're just in a lull.
And what it really means is that in the next set of pit stops, which may be as many as 45 or 50 laps away, the Elliott team will be having to look to try to find a better combination, and the Earnhardt team might well be satisfied to just approximate what they have at this moment, because it would serve them well in the latter stages of the race, or so it would appear.
Yeah, but of course, you know, later tonight when it's all over and people are talking about it, Earnhardt may wish that he had the combination that he has right now working for him at the end. It could shift just as quickly the other way. You know, that report on the tires, I think, was very important. The tires almost have a personality of their own. If you look at the major teams, each of them has 8 or 10 sets of tires deployed behind their pits, and a tire expert who lovingly goes around and checks the diameter and circumference of those tires, knows which ones to put on at which stage. And now Dr. Punch is with Ernie Elliott, who in some ways is the man of the moment. I mean, we're wondering what is the problem and if it's serious with Bill Elliott.
Well, they don't seem to be too concerned here in the Elliott pits, and the oldest brother, Ernie. Ernie, is there a problem with the car at all?
No, the race is only about high voltage. You know, Earnhardt's awfully strong, but we're still making adjustments on the car, so no need getting concerned until down the end of the race.
Are you concerned about the pace that Dale Earnhardt's been setting early? Is that a little bit too strong for you?
Nah, we're just going to play follow the leader.
Well, they're very confident here in the Elliott pits. They may not have shown their hand yet. It's still early here at Atlanta.
And that's probably entirely the proper attitude for the Elliott camp to be taking at this time.
He's acting. I don't buy it a bit. I think there is a degree of concern, and I think that the question of a sort of prize fight, I think there is a battle of personalities between these two leading teams that have made their mark so indelibly on this Winston Cup season. But then again, there isn't anything that Ernie can do right now.
Well, feedback between the pit crew and the driver is so intense that there may indeed be some element of acting necessary on the part of the crew to keep the driver happy and feeling confident and in the frame of mind that keeps him in the race. We'll be back after this commercial message and a word from our local stations. As we return to Atlanta International Raceway, we're about 3/5 of the way through the Atlanta 500, an ABC Sports live exclusive being brought to you by Radio Shack Computer Centers, in business for business, by Champion Spark Plug Company, and by Budweiser, the genuine article Beechwood Age for that clean, crisp taste. This Bud's for you. Standings to the moment after 190 laps. Dale Earnhardt still the leader. Bill Elliott still in second place. Third place now belongs to the venerable Benny Parsons. Fourth to Ricky Rudd, and fifth to Rusty Wallace. Sixth place now with Ken Schrader. Richard Petty seventh, and he has not been able to get past fifth, where he was briefly earlier in the race. And there, once again, is the leader, Dale Earnhardt. There are at least 3 different generations of drivers on the track and active in NASCAR Winston Cup racing. One of the elder statesmen is the man who's racing in third place in car number 35, Benny Parsons. Quite an eloquent man who sometimes works as an expert commentator on this sport for our brethren at ESPN. A little bit earlier, we asked Benny Parsons, and I'm sure he speaks for many of the drivers, if he still takes the kinds of chances he did when he was a younger man.
I don't think so. I think that with age, you get, with maturity, you learn that 8 times out of 10, when you put your nose in that situation, somebody's going to slap it off. For the 2 times that it works, the other 8 times more than overcomes financially and the press, the bad press that you get from the press and also your other drivers. So probably I think maturity, you learn that you get in those situations that it really isn't worth it.
And we are back live at Atlanta, and let's go down to pit row and Jerry Gappens.
Our right-hand man down in the pits, Bob Sterling, is quick to point out if we have no more yellow flags, the race could come down to a can of fuel. The next stop, if you go 60 laps, is scheduled for lap 208. Next stop will be 268. And then if you go 60 more laps, it comes out to lap number 328, the final lap of the race. So 2 more stops. If you can get 60 laps per stop, you're going to be right at the finish. Let's go to my colleague, Dr. Jerry Punch.
We're standing with Rick Hendrick, who owns 3 race cars. And Rick, you have the car of Benny Parsons, which is running awfully well, Jeff Bodine, and Darrell Walton. Right now you're in the Bodine pit, but you're watching all 3 cars.
Yeah, I'm listening to all 3 on the radio, and we're just trying to stay in the hunt.
Tell us about the driver that we've all been concerned about, Tim Richmond. Richmond missing now. He's been ill for a couple of months. Will he be making a comeback pretty soon?
Yeah, Jerry, Tim's doing real well, and we want to tell him hello down in Florida, but probably be testing in 3 to 4 weeks, and hopefully we'll have him back at the Winston in Charlotte. He really wants to run that wet race, and we want to get him there.
Well, Tim Richmond suffered pneumonia. He is trying to recover in Florida, hopefully back in the middle of next month.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jerry Punch. And as you look at Benny Parsons, that's a good subject, Sam Posey. Tim Richmond was as hot as any driver through much of the second half of the circuit last year. Won more pole positions than any other driver, at least equal Jeff Bodine in that category with 8. Won several races.
Yeah, he won 7 exactly, and the ride that he has is the ride that Benny Parsons now has because Tim Richmond is sidelined. Pneumonia was mentioned, and it's difficult in particular, I think, for a driver to resume his line of work after pneumonia because of the delicate condition of the lungs. I mean, it could be especially dangerous to inhale the toxic fumes that any driver breathes from the gas, the oil, the exhaust fumes. So Richmond's going to have to take it very carefully. But he hasn't met much with the press, if at all, and there's been an aura of mystery surrounding Richmond's illness, which I find kind of fascinating. He's a mercurial guy, a mercurial guy. I mean, a couple of years ago, he gave $10,000 to the chapel here at the at the tracks, and a very generous man on one hand, and a man who, with no provocation at all, took a swing at me one time after a broadcast down at Daytona. So he can be difficult. He's explosive. He's an enormous talent. And before his illness, he was one of the great natural athletes of the circuit here, he and Kyle Petty.
Was he athletic enough to connect on that swing?
Luckily
or were
for
you
me,
athletic enough to get out of the way?
Luckily for me, there was a little distance between us, but it was nerve-wracking, and Richmond's a volatile guy, and we, of course, are greatly missing him on the circuit because he is so interesting. 36 years old, and he had such a great season going. It must be killing him not to, be out here now.
And you just watched, incidentally, Dale Earnhardt, the leader, picking his way through traffic quite skillfully as he continues to hold on to the lead. That lap in 34.3 seconds, about 159 miles per hour. The speed perhaps affected by the traffic he found facing him. Another comment, incidentally, on the Tim Richmond situation, I believe, from Dr. Jerry Punch. Let's go back to him.
I talked to Tim a couple of days ago where he's trying to recover in Florida. He went from in Victory Lane in Riverside, California in November of last year to fighting for his life a month later in a hospital up in Cleveland, Ohio. Dr. Susan Wren at the Cleveland Clinic his physician has been able to bring him back. He couldn't breathe, he couldn't walk 3 or 4 feet. He now told me that he played a round of golf yesterday. He played tennis also in the afternoon. He's trying to get himself back in shape. He feels like he's just about back to where he needs to be to get back in the race car. The plans, they're going to test a car in 3 weeks. They hope to run a race that you heard Rick Hendrick say a minute ago, sometime in the middle of next month. And Tim Richmond is watching today, hoping to get back in the car someday, so Hendrick will have 4 cars in the field, probably by the end of May.
Thank you, Dr. Punch, and certainly Hendrick is a rapidly growing mogul in the sport. May soon, as Dr. Punch points out, have as many as 4 cars racing in super speedway events such as this one. Well, we are past the 200 lap mark of 328 total in the Atlanta 500. Dale Earnhardt still in control. We return live to Atlanta, where ABC Sports Camera 3, piloted by Drew DeRosa, one of the best in his business, is following car number 3 on the track, piloted by Dale Earnhardt, arguably at this moment the very best in his business. And Earnhardt continues to, if not run away, Sam Posey, pretty much have things his own way at this stage of the race.
He really has, when you think about it, almost from the outset. But then again, the Elliott team, we've said this many times, is very, very strong, and they are not playing their trump cards yet. However, they have to face the fact it's been 2 races since they have won, and this man, Earnhardt, has won both of those races. What we'll do, the gap a few laps back was in the 3.2, 3.6 seconds. We'll get it again here, and we'll see if it has increased. Earnhardt working his way off the 4th turn and down toward the start-finish line right below where we are here. See him go by. We look up the track to Bill Elliott, who is there, and you see how much the gap has grown. It has been growing steadily at about 1/10 to 1.5 per lap.
And there are only 7 cars on the lead lap as you watch Earnhardt as he prowls on the rear of Richard Petty's car. If he passes Petty, there'll be only 6 cars on the lead lap. Meanwhile, Jerry Gappens pointed out the scenario earlier. Pit stops probably to come at around lap 208 and around lap 268, and here they go. This is on lap 208, between 207 and 208. Earnhardt coming in, and does Elliott follow him? No. No, Elliott has stayed out. So there's Earnhardt in the pit.
Changing the inside tires there, suggesting that there's certainly nothing wrong with the handling. They would have changed, of course, the more critical outside tires had they wanted to.
Spun just slightly coming out of the pit. 16.5-second pit stop. For the moment, Bill Elliott becomes the leader. And Jerry Gappens was certainly accurate with that forecast. It was lap 208 when Earnhardt decided to come in for the pits. Now, Dr. Jerry Punch stands by to call Elliott's pit stop for him.
Here's Bill Elliott on pit road. Ernie Elliott brings the car to a halt. He will peel away some debris from the front of the grille. They clean the windshield, making a major chassis adjustment to the right side of the car. They will change the left side tires. The first can of fuel already in. They will hold it to make sure they get that second can of fuel all important in. Elliott down and away. Good pit stop as he moves down pit road.
15 and a half seconds, maybe 16, so they were right there in the same ballpark.
Yes, but Elliott needed that stop more than Earnhardt needed his. I mean, their chassis was further out. You see Benny Parsons there on the right of your screen in the dark red car. And in second place, right behind him, you see Ricky Rudd, number 15, the Bud Moore entry. Bud Moore, one of the great old car owners in this scene. Many, many years of experience. Ricky Rudd, a comparatively young driver with, in my view, a very big future. Obviously, neither of these men, Jim, has pitted.
There goes Petty into the pit. And we will wait to see when Parsons and Rudd pit. For the moment, Benny Parsons is the leader. Ricky Rudd is in second place. And Elliott and Earnhardt are now picking their way back through the traffic of cars which have not yet pitted. Now again, if a yellow flag were to come out right at this moment, it would be a tremendous break for Benny Parsons and Ricky Rudd. There's Rusty Wallace as he comes in. Dr. Punch again.
Rusty Wallace in the pits with the car number 27. He just about missed his pit. He stepped on the brakes, slid the car almost a half a pit away. Good pit stop. They did not quite get the car completely fueled, so he moved down and away.
That was a 13-second pit stop for Rusty Wallace, the fastest of the ones that we have timed. This is Ricky Rudd in for this stop. They did not adjust the chassis. You would have seen a man, you see the man on the left of the screen here, he would have dived into the inside of the car to make that adjustment. They changed instead the left rear tire. So evidently they must be pretty pleased with the way that car is running, and I'm not surprised.
And there is the leader, Benny Parsons, gambling just a little bit more. He continues to hold on to that front-running position. Now Rudd has pitted, Wallace has pitted.
Look at how high up on the track Benny Parsons is running. He cannot keep his car, what they call pinch down, to that shorter route around this mile-and-a-half track that Dale Earnhardt is able to take. You see Jeff Bodine has just ducked into the pit, so all of the key players at this point are making pit stops except for Benny Parsons. As you pointed out, Jim, this is the way races are won if you get incredibly lucky. If you could get a yellow out right now and Benny were to pit under that yellow, it would be an immense break. Bodine, routine stop, 15.4 seconds. What's Benny waving for? Pit. He's indicating that he's about to pit. That gives Rudd an idea what line to take. He knows that Benny's going to be slowing, you see, suddenly on the inside line. So that was a very generous signal by Benny Parsons to Ricky Rudd saying, don't follow me down low through this turn because I'm going to be slowing up suddenly in the middle of it.
46-year-old Benny Parsons from Ellerby, North Carolina. We mentioned that the one great veteran, Richard Petty, made a run at Elliott down at Daytona and came close in the Daytona 500. So too did Benny Parsons on that day.
Benny Parsons was talking to us the other day as if this might be his last hurrah this season. Maybe never again a shot at the Winston Cup Championship. But, you know, I don't know. He has an awful lot of racing left in him, it seems to me. He's a savvy guy, a guy very much loved by everybody in this sport, and I think that may keep him in the game for some time. Schrader now leading the race.
And he is the man who is gambling with fuel consumption right now, staying out as long as possible. So Schrader holds the lead, and as you see, as soon as Schrader decides to pit, then Earnhardt and Elliott will reassume their positions at the front of the pack. And let's go back down to Dr. Jerry Punch. Doc?
The NASCAR rules state that in any pit stop, you can only have a total of 6 men over the wall. That's 5 men to work on the car, plus 1 man with a catch can to catch the fuel overflow. For every additional person over the wall, there's a 15-second penalty. On 2 of those pit stops we just saw, one, Dale Earnhardt's pit stop, the other one, Rusty Wallace, a 7th man just about came over the wall, and if it weren't for that NASCAR official standing there pushing him back, they could have had a penalty, which would have been very costly for those 2 drivers.
Yet no penalty was issued. Is that right, Dr. Punch?
There was no penalty issued in either team, but very, very close, particularly in Rusty Wallace's crew. They said if the guy would have stepped another half an inch over the wall, he would have been held another 15 seconds.
The NASCAR officials actually were pushing them back over the wall, physically restraining them from coming out there?
No, they hold up one hand, indicating that there are 5 men working on the car, and they will point to the extra man, making sure he knows that there will be a penalty if he comes across the wall. He was leaning over with the gas can, trying to help fuel the car as quickly as possible, and just about stepped over the wall, but the NASCAR official turned and pointed. He went back and saved the penalty.
Yeah, the point is you're allowed to be over on the car side of the wall, the racetrack side, as long as you keep one of your feet in contact with the wall. So it takes an acrobat to pull that maneuver off, but you can get a 6-man into action, at least for a few seconds that way.
And there is car number 11 belonging to Terry Labonte, as apparently Labonte pulls down toward the pits. And
Labonte ran out of gas. Jim, you know, he was stretching his mileage earlier in the Junior Johnson car. Bill Elliott has come in.
Elliott's back in. This is a second pit stop just moments after, or actually a few laps after, the one which he took a short time ago.
We're looking at the first major development of the race. I mean, it's an incredibly fast stop for Elliott, under 10 seconds, about 10.7 seconds, but that is a big deal, obviously. Oh, and there's smoke of a car spinning in Schrader
himself hits the outside wall.
So now Elliott stopped. Assessing that, it's going to hurt him all the more. Yes?
Yellow flag out.
All right, this is the way races get decided, right in this kind of a situation.
Cars racing to the flag, attempting to solidify their positions before they pull into caution formation. Elliott particularly in a hurry as he comes down the front straight. Here's another look at what happened to Ken Schrader in car number 90.
Smoke pouring off the right rear. It's a blown engine now. Of course, that will oil up that part of the racetrack, which is the racing groove. Now he's spinning in his own oil. There isn't much a driver can do no matter what his ability. Notice the Schrader beautifully steers into it, minimizes, it's barely a tap into the wall, basically. But now oil has been laid down right all the way through what has been the fast groove in turns 1 and 2.
Particularly deft job of saving a difficult situation by Ken Schrader.
Now we're going to have another look at that. This is what the race driver sees. This is Neil Bonnet's car. Moments ago, he was following Schrader on the track. You see the smoke from Schrader. Now, where does Bonnet go? Does he try to go around the right side? Yeah, and it works. It wasn't that tough a decision for Bonnet, but it does show you. You notice the avoiding action that Bonnet, going full speed at the time, had to take. Now, obviously, Earnhardt, along with everybody else, is stopping, and they have the advantage of making this stop under the yellow.
But because the yellow came out on precisely the lap on which Elliott had chosen to pit a second time under the green, it turns out, does it not, to be a tremendous break for Elliott, saving him from losing a lap under the green flag.
Yeah.
So just at the period when he appeared to be in trouble, having to make a second pit stop, he got a bit break. Elliott was in the pits now a third time, as was Dale Earnhardt, as have been all of the major players in this drama. And suddenly, what looked like it was about to become a non-race remains a race. Let's go back down to Dr. Jerry Punch.
Here's the reason for the Bill Elliott unscheduled pit stop. The Goodyear engineers have circled the area that this tire was cut. The right rear tire on the car number 9 had been cut, was going down. Elliott radioed in, said, "I'm coming this time. I got a right side tire going down." They took the tire off. He went back down and away. Apparently a tough break for Elliott and the crew.
But in fact, it may not have hurt him all that badly. Now, NASCAR control still sorting out the scoring of this entire sequence. Meanwhile, Waltrip, several other cars coming into the pits. They are under the yellow as they try to clean the oil in turn 1, and we'll be back right after this commercial. We are back live in Atlanta as you look at the car of Ken Schrader, which is being brought into pit row and into the garage. Apparently Schrader, who has been among the leaders most of the day, is now through for the rest of the Atlanta 500. Again, I'm Jim Lampley with Sam Posey. Most of the drama, Sam, has centered on Dale Earnhardt and the man who has been his constant pursuer most of the day, Bill Elliott. Now, with about 150 miles to go, the pit stop sequence becomes critical. Apparently, only one more pit stop for each driver if they go the rest of the way under the green.
Yeah, and there's nothing to indicate a substantial fuel advantage for either Elliott or Earnhardt. However, what we've just seen in the last few minutes, and it was obviously very exciting, is how a race which seemed to be kind of getting into its middle age, was sort of slowing up in terms of its pace and excitement, could suddenly be turned around by a split-second situation. First, there was the cut tire by Bill Elliott, forcing him into an extra stop. Coincidental with that, the Ken Schrader blown engine. So all of a sudden, these factors, which if they'd happened independent of each other, but woven together into the fabric of the race, became crucial. Without that Ken Schrader engine blow, Elliott's stop would have been under the green, as you pointed out, and he would have fallen a lap behind. As it was, he was saved by what happened to Schrader. That is racing luck, pure and simple.
And it decides more races than perhaps the best cars in the world can themselves or the best drivers do. Positions 1 through 5 after 225 of 328 laps, Earnhardt, Elliott, Rusty Wallace, Ricky Rudd, and Benny Parsons. Positions 6 through 10, Terry Labonte, Cale Yarborough, Jeff Bodine, Phil Parsons, Richard Petty, and let's go back down now to pit row where Jerry Gappens is standing by.
Again, with one of the Elliott brothers, Dan, it looked like you got a break with that yellow flag right after you came in.
Yeah, we did. Had a flat on the right front, came in, got it changed, then the caution came out, and we were fortunate we didn't get a lap down.
And he raced with Earnhardt now.
Yeah, let's go on and see if we can finish and win this race.
We're ready for a shootout here at the finish at Atlanta.
Thank you very much, Jerry, and now I believe they have gone green. Am I correct? Yes, indeed. They have gone green just as Jerry Gappens was finishing up that report, and Dale Earnhardt chases down the backstretch now with the lead, and again, Bill Elliott in car number 9 is in second place. So once again, you have the duel between Earnhardt and Elliott and an opportunity to judge the relative performances of the two cars. Both are in the high line now as they come out of the caution formation, and now Earnhardt dives back down on the inside of turn 1 where Schrader's car may or may not have left any remaining oil residue on the track.
Well, this is what we talked about at the very beginning. As the track changes, and patently it is now oilier than it was. We've had 3 blown engines, most notably Schrader's obviously in the last few minutes, in the line, and yet Earnhardt is still able to keep his car down low. Now, Dr. Punch is with Ken Schrader for a word about what happened in that dramatic incident. Doctor?
Well, Kenny Schrader has climbed out of what's left of this Ford Thunderbird. You see the rear deck where it came into contact with the wall over in turn 2. And Kenny, first of all, are you all right?
Oh, yeah, we're just fine. It didn't hit that hard, just hard enough to mess up the car pretty good.
What happened?
Well, we had a real good run going, felt like, and the motor was doing us a real good job all day, but we just dropped down in the first turn, and it came apart out the bottom of the engine, and the rear wheel's getting your own oil, and away you go.
Looked like your car was handling awfully well on the bottom of the racetrack. Is that the place to be right now on the bottom?
Well, we were real happy that we were just about ready for another fuel stop, which meant our tires really had like 100 miles on them compared to a lot of other guys. We could still run good on the bottom, so later in the race that would have really come to us.
Well, Kenny Schrader out of it here in Atlanta.
Well, there's the running at the bottom of the track that I spoke of. Downstairs against upstairs. Earnhardt so able to run down there.
There is car number 71, Dave Marcus. He was involved in that multi-car spin and slam incident early in the race, which took place on the backstretch, and now he's going to go out and do it the hard way for a while.
Well, you can forget any sophisticated aerodynamics in the Dave Marcus machine just at the moment.
Final score from the NCAA Midwest Regional, another upset. LSU knocking off highly ranked Temple. It's been a day of upsets, and if you're a Syracuse fan, you might want to start to worry about Western Kentucky. Meanwhile, Bill Elliott appears to be falling farther and farther behind Earnhardt, both cars having pitted Elliott 3 times, Earnhardt twice in the most recent sequence, and once again it appears as though it's Dale who got the better setup.
Dale's setup has not quit on him all day long. It doesn't mean that if the race ran under the green to the finish and in that last pit stop, he might not get a bad set of tires or a bad setup, or something might happen to the track that will change the situation. But boy, so far they have been, the Richard Childress crew, totally on top of it. Now, last week at Richmond, Elliott was the who ran well. Earnhardt won the race, but Elliott ran very, very well throughout, and then right at the last minute got a bad set of tires and dropped back to 4th. So that can happen to you, and it could happen to Dale Earnhardt today. Right now, He sure looks as tough and as bulletproof, I think Jerry said earlier, as anybody out there, though.
231 laps down, and now 97 laps to go. Each one 1.522 miles. Once again, remind you, in case you have not tuned in earlier, handling is at a premium on this particular race course because it calls itself a true oval, and what is meant by that is that the turns account for much more of the track distance than do straightaways. Straightaways only a quarter of a mile long. When you take this long view of the track from our wide lenses, you can see that the turns at a half mile apiece are much longer. Caution flag out once again, and once again the cars will bunch up in the yellow flag formation, so that margin between Earnhardt and Elliott, which had stretched to more than 2 seconds, will once again evaporate under the caution flag. And we'll be back live right after this. We are back live at the Atlanta 500. You look at the race car of Jimmy Means, number 52, as it is being hauled off of the track, and it was that particular mishap which accounted for the yellow flag, which sent all of the leaders scurrying back into the pits for still another set of pit stops. So for the moment, it is Benny Parsons who is on the lead, with Earnhardt in second place and Elliott third. We take this opportunity to remind you that ABC's Wide World of Sports next Saturday at 4:30 Eastern and Pacific, 3:30 Central Time will feature the World Figure Skating Champions Tour. Brian Orser of Canada and Katarina Witt of East Germany, the respected men's and women's world champions, will be involved in that tour. And Iowa's Hawkeyes will go for their 10th consecutive NCAA Wrestling Championship in College Park, Maryland. No college varsity team in any sport has ever won 10 national championships in a row. And right now, Dr. Jerry Punch stands by with Dan Elliott, and let's go back down there. Doctor?
Well, Bill Elliott has had 2 breaks today here in Atlanta. You know, we showed you the cut tire, and the caution came out just after he had made that unscheduled pit stop, so he didn't lose a lap. He's had a break again because the tires he had on the car, Dan, he didn't like them.
No, he didn't like the stagger on the tires. The car wasn't performing or handling as well as it was during the during the early part of the race. So we got a chance to change the tires again and readjust the chassis, and we believe this time we can run on.
You're getting closer and closer to Earnhardt. Do you feel like maybe by the end you can run with him?
I hope we don't run out of time.
Well, that's Dan Elliott here. They're hoping they've gotten 2 breaks already here in the Elliott pits.
All right, thank you again, Dr. Punch. And of course, in this sport, you never lose, you just run out of time, right?
That's right. But of course, Earnhardt has to absolutely hate this. Richard Childress, his pit crew manager, has to hate it because it means that with every yellow, the Elliots get to reload and try it again.
And Jerry Gappin stands by with Richard Childress right now. Jerry?
Richard, the yellow came at an inopportune time. You were spreading it out against Elliott. Does that make it tough now at the end?
Well, we're just going to have to race some of those cars that only took on 2 tires that got out in front of us, but I believe we'll be okay.
I noticed you took on 4 new tires. You were obviously handling pretty well. Is that a chance, taking on 4 new tires when you had some good ones working for you?
No, we just wanted to keep the same stagger on the car and try to keep it as consistent as we could.
Are we looking at one more stop?
Yeah, everybody's got one more stop.
Okay, Richard Childress on Dale Earnhardt's car.
And he mentioned the cars that only took on 2 tires each and have gotten out in front. They are Benny Parsons in car number 35, car number 27, Rusty Wallace, and Ricky Rudd in car number 15. So now Earnhardt is in 4th place, and Elliott is in 5th place. And the signal is being given to the drivers that in one more lap, they will be going green. One more lap of caution flag formation now as Bobby Allison departs from the track and goes off into the pits. He is at least 1 lap down and not among the contenders.
See, of course, Childress' point, he said, we're just trying to keep the thing the way it is. I mean, their car is working, and they've had a good setup all day long, and everything indicates they will have a strong setup for the rest of the race. The question is, can one or more of the other teams with a shot, and that's obviously Parsons and Elliott, possibly Rudd, will any of those guys find in the 11th hour a combination that'll let them run with Dale Earnhardt? That becomes the question at this stage.
90 laps to go. And that represents about 140 miles. You know how long it would take you or me to travel 140 miles today, and these guys are going to do it in less than an hour once the green flag comes out. Crowd here, over 70,000. have turned out, as is customarily the case for the two 500-mile races which take place each year here at Atlanta International Raceway. Always one in the spring, this one, and then there is another which takes place later on in November. Last year, Dale Earnhardt finished second in the first and won the November race, so he is maintaining a real hot streak at Atlanta International Raceway with his performance today. And they go green, and we will see how long it takes Earnhardt to shuffle his way past those cars which are in front of him. The car on the inside has been lapped. The ones on the outside are the three which are ahead of him, and they are Benny Parsons, Rusty Wallace, and Ricky Rudd.
That's Waldrop, who's been lapped. Now watch Earnhardt with the yellow car on the right of your screen drop down low just immediately. And the other drivers that he is going to try to pick off, their cars do not seem to handle that well at this stage of the game. Now that's because Earnhardt is just taken on 4 fresh tires, and his car is just out-gripping the others, and you see it plain as day. Benny Parsons, sure, he saved himself time in the pits, but Earnhardt, now that the race is on again, has 15% more grip, let's say, in the turns.
And Rusty Wallace has a good idea. As you look at Richard Childress in the Earnhardt pit, no doubt quite satisfied with Dale Earnhardt's rapid, less than 1 lap move back to the front of the pack. Wallace, for a moment, latched onto Earnhardt's rear bumper, but now Earnhardt has distanced himself from him. And Dale Earnhardt, with this particular setup at this stage of the race, looks doggone near invincible. But every driver has to make at least one more pit stop. As you heard Richard Childress say, that may be what tells the ultimate story. Back live in Atlanta now with 82 laps to go in our live coverage of the Atlanta 500. Before we went away, we showed you how rapidly Dale Earnhardt was able to get by the 3 cars which had led him out of the last set of pit stops. Those the cars of Benny Parsons, Rusty Wallace, and Ricky Rudd. Well, since that time, Bill Elliott has made precisely the same move, so Elliott has reinstalled himself in the second place position, which has been customary for him through most of the day, and Elliott looks as though he might be a little bit friskier than he was before that last pit stop.
Probably. I'm being a little guarded because you see Elliott on the right of the screen. There he is. He is running some distance behind Earnhardt. They've got Terry Labonte, who is a lap down in between them. 2 laps ago, it looked as if Elliott, you see the relationship, it's Labonte in the center, Elliott on the right, and Earnhardt leading on the left as the shadows begin to lengthen across the track. I don't know. I think that Elliott at this point, if he has speed, look at the amount that Earnhardt is sliding in the turn. It's really quite exceptional. Anyway, if Elliott has the speed, he's going to show it, or he's going to have to get a little bit closer.
Well, you would expect a man like Dale Earnhardt, who has become, for the moment, the dominant figure in stock car racing, to be fearless, or at least somewhat fearless. And we sought some insight into that subject as a little bit earlier we asked Dale Earnhardt if he ever feels any fear on the track.
No, I'm not afraid. The only fears I have of race cars is burning up, fire. But I don't ever think about it, doing it or before doing the race or anything. After a wreck, I'm in a bad crash or something, I really don't think about what happened as far as getting scared about it or nervous about it or worried about it. It just never enters my mind. I think when it does, or if I sit down in a race car and I worry about going down the corner and having a wreck and getting hurt or something, then it's when I'll probably retire, get out of the car. But I think the fire would be the biggest fear in my life. I'm more nervous about driving down a 2-lane road, 2-way traffic, than I am racing on a racetrack.
And with some logic. Of course, Earnhardt grew up in the sport at a time when his father was racing, and at a time when the general safety level of stock car racing was not nearly as high as it is now.
Exactly so, and I think Earnhardt still retains that inner toughness that came from a time when things were a lot tougher. And it makes you wonder about some of the younger men coming up through the sport now, how it will be different for them. I reckon they have some toughness of their own. Now, I think the key thing at this stage is to determine whether Elliott is able to make any progress against Earnhardt or not. So, forgive me for making another stab with the watch here, but
no, I love it.
We will see the gap at 2.3 now. Of course, that's significantly less than it was before the sequence of pit stops. It had been 3.2, 3.6. Finally, it was just under 5 seconds. At that point, Elliott seemed powerless to do anything about Earnhardt and his speed. We'll take it on the next lap around. Elliott, however well he's moving, is going to have to get past Labonte first. He may lose a little ground doing that. There's Earnhardt, and there's Elliott. So it's still about the same. But I think Elliott's speed is now being controlled more by Labonte, possibly, than by the speed of his own car.
And let's once again point up what is at stake here for Dale Earnhardt as you watch him cruising in the lead. A couple weeks ago, Earnhardt won a race in Richmond, Virginia at a distance of 400 miles. Last week, he won a 500-mile race in Rockingham, North Carolina. If he can hold on today, he will have scored 3 consecutive wins. And the most consecutive wins in the modern-day history of stock car racing is 4, accomplished twice by Cale Yarborough in 1976 and Darrell Waltrip in 1981. That's pretty good company. Certainly, Earnhardt's accomplishments to date have already put him at least on a similar level to those gentlemen. His background is not quite as deep as those of Waltrip and Cale Yarborough, but he's won the Winston Cup Championship twice, and he's won 4 of the last 7 races on the circuit, including the last 2, and he would love, I'm sure, he's quite aware of his record, and would dearly love to join Cale Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip as the only man ever to win 4 in a row.
The track is staying pretty fast. I would have guessed that with Schrader's blown engine, the track would have been more slippery and would have been slower. Earnhardt is confounding that. On lap 253, blown engine. That's it, folks. We seem to have a one-horse race very suddenly, I would say.
Bill Elliott in car number 9 has just blown his engine, and that is going to do it for the Dawsonville, Georgia effort today. As Elliott makes his way toward pit row, we await a chance to sum this situation up. Straight into the garage. See you around. His crew already packing up their pit.
Boy, it can happen so suddenly. Earnhardt on lap 253, which is 3 now, almost 4 laps ago, lapped at 33.4 seconds, which was just a tenth slower than he lapped back on lap 140 when the race was still much, much younger. Here is Richard Childress in the pit. Now, obviously, tremendous change of fortunes in favor of him. If they were afraid of an attack by Elliott in the latter stages of the race, they need not fear that now. Now they have only to worry and to hear those sounds that every driver, every car owner, every team member hears when you're in the lead and you're really not having to push, because now your concentration can shift to things like, do I feel a vibration? Does the car feel just right to me? It can be agony out there, actually much, much harder to be out in the lead without being pursued than to have somebody right there behind you.
All right, let's recap all of the cars which are no longer in the race. 42 cars began, and these are among the cars which went out very early. Lake Speed, Michael Waltrip, Buddy Baker, and now we get to page 2. Cope's crash, Harry Gant's crash, Alan Kulwicki's crash, Jimmy Means' crash on lap 137, Schrader, and Bill Elliott. Of course, Schrader's engine blew before he hit the wall, and Elliott joins him in the blown engine category, and Earnhardt is virtually alone out there. Very few cars on the lead lap, none of them at this moment within hailing distance of Dale.
Nor at any point, Jim, during the day have we really seen anybody that had, for any length of time at all, Earnhardt's speed. So as we look down, we're looking at the entrance to pit lane, where we have heard a report that there's a lot of oil there. It would obviously be, you see the official looking at it, it would be very dangerous if there was a sudden yellow and everybody came diving in. We feared for years, incidentally, the possibility of a major pileup in the pits, a very volatile situation with so many cars coming in fast. And if it was oily, it would be very, very bad.
There is 34-year-old Dale Earnhardt, apparently, seemingly, with a long way to go, on his way to a third stock car racing victory in a row. And being chased by Ricky Rudd, Rusty Wallace, Jeff Bodine, and I believe it was Benny Parsons, whose car was listed in 5th place. And there is a look at...
That's the way they dry up oil. Doesn't take long and it works pretty well. However, just don't breathe that stuff in.
Well, we've got less than 100 miles to go in the Atlanta 500. And we'll be back for the conclusion of the race right after this. We are back live at the Atlanta 500, and while we were away, Bill Parsons blew an engine, left some oil on the track, and consequently, the yellow caution flag came out. And under the caution, Rusty Wallace has temporarily assumed the lead. I say temporarily because if Dale Earnhardt's car, which came into the pits, is in anywhere near the same kind of shape that it was prior to that sequence, we would expect that Earnhardt is going to reassume the lead once they go green. You can see the number of cars who are coming into the pits right now to take advantage of the yellow caution flag. And there, as you look back down along the main straightaway, or the front straightaway here, with pit row on the right, you can see the cars lined up in single file as they come down the track. Dale Earnhardt would need only one more pit stop to finish this race, if indeed the rest of the race is run under the green flag. Rusty Wallace in car 27 is positioned directly in front of number 3, Dale Earnhardt.
Rusty Wallace, who you see there in car number 27, many of the parts of his car, the spare engines and so on, were stolen from that race team shop before the Daytona race. You might think, well, why didn't he just buy some more engines and so on? But these parts of these racing cars so carefully worked on all through the winter, massaged, gotten just right, that it was a major setback for the team. It was really just in the last race that they found the crooks, by the way, and got the parts back and have been able to start running properly again. And this is their first shot on a super speedway since that robbery episode has been settled.
Well, for much of the day, it was a mano between Bill Elliott and Dale Earnhardt. And now there is one, but Elliott stands by with Dr. Jerry Punch.
Well, the two gladiators had battled all afternoon. One of them is out of it. Bill Elliott, what happened over there?
Well, I think it decided it didn't want to live any longer, you know. The car just, you know, something happened to the engine. I really don't know. It just felt like something broke.
Did you think maybe it would be your day when you had that unscheduled stop, and boom, the caution flag came out and it was a break for you? You didn't lose a lap. Then you came back in and got the fresh tires and looked like you got another break. Looked like maybe it was going to go Bill Elliott's way.
Well, it looks like it's going to go Dale Earnhardt's way. Dale's tough. You know, I tried to run with him there a time or two, and I just couldn't do nothing with him. You know, I was trying everything I could do. And he's tough. You know, he's going to be the guy to beat, and I don't think there's nobody out there that can beat him.
Nobody that can run with Dale Earnhardt right now?
Not even me.
Sorry to see you out of it.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Punch, and that was an entirely realistic appraisal of what the situation was prior to the blown engine for Bill Elliott, was it not, Sam Posey? Yes, you yourself pointed out earlier that his brother was acting a little bit when he offered the somewhat sanguine view that, oh, well, we're just waiting toward the end of the race. The truth was that they never had a big enough gun to match the gun that Dale Earnhardt is toting out there today. So, with the yellow flag still out and not much happening here at Atlanta, we'll be back with more exclusive coverage of the Atlanta 500 after this commercial message and a word from our local stations. I'm Jim Lampley with Sam Posey and Dr. Jerry Punch and Jerry Gappens, and we welcome you back to Hotlanta. Well, not really Hotlanta. It's actually Hampton, Georgia, about 30 miles south, and not really so hot today as a pleasant breeze is billowing the American flag on the infield, and Rusty Wallace is the leader under the yellow flag with fewer than 100 miles to go in the Atlanta 500. Right behind Rusty Wallace's bumper is the car of number 35, Benny Parsons. And as they get ready to go green, the car to watch is the one which has been the dominant race car on the track all day. That the yellow and blue rig of Dale Earnhardt, car number 3. Pretty soon we should see Earnhardt picking his way back toward the lead here, where he has occupied his time most of the day in this 500-mile race. There goes Dale in car number 3. And Sam Posey, you have some fascinating statistics demonstrating the consistency of his car's performance today.
Well, you know, usually from the beginning of the race to the end, with the deterioration of the track and so on, you expect to see a car slow by as much as a second. Now, our statistician, Jimmy Resser, has been timing the laps and keeping a record of them throughout. And here's just a casual sampling. Back on lap 27, Earnhardt's time was 33.5. On lap 116, it was 33.3. On lap 140, it was 33.3. On lap 253, it was 33.4. And just recently, it was 33.5. So he has managed consistency of an unprecedented level in this kind of racing. And it's obviously a marriage of the fact that they have found a way to make the car handle well on a greasy track, handle well low down in the groove, as we've discussed plenty today, I think. But also the fact that Earnhardt, at the wheel out there, is an Iron Man. He just keeps putting it out all day long. And, you know, we're just joking. He made a brief pit stop moments ago. What do you think they were doing to the car? They didn't seem to be doing anything. And I said, well, they're probably just patting him on the back. If so, it was well-deserved, because the guy has just done a remarkable job at the wheel of a remarkable car.
Nevertheless, at this moment, he is in 6th place, with 5 cars in front of him, at least, perhaps even 6 cars in front of him. So he does have some traffic to pick up to get his car back to the front of the race, where it has been most of the day. And I'm sure there are moments of anxiety here for Richard Childress, the car owner in the pits, and indeed to a certain degree for Dale himself, because so many little things could go wrong as he tries to make his way back toward what seems to have been the natural order of things all day, and that is for him to be in the lead.
He's just picked off Ricky Rudd. Now we're seeing the camera in Cale Yarborough's car as it looks over somewhat jealously, I think, at the car of what is that on the right windshield of Cale's car? It's just some tape that has come loose, you know, as they change that windshield, just that silver tape. All right, Earnhardt has slipped on by, and we're now looking at the back of Benny Parsons' car from Cale Yarborough's car, as we see Dale Earnhardt picking off and really, in some ways, showing off and somewhat humiliating the men that had a chance to run with him and have not been able to do it. That's Kyle Petty ahead of him right now. Kyle Petty, one of course, the younger generation of men coming up. We've seen Earnhardt going low all day. He decided to take Kyle Petty on the high side, I think as a defensive maneuver more than anything else against Benny Parsons, who is lurking behind him.
Now, if I'm guessing this correctly, he has only Rusty Wallace in car number 27 to pass now to reassume the lead. He has gone during that discussion from 6th up to 2nd. And there is Wallace's car, the white one, number 27. What is the car to the left of the screen there?
Terry Labonte, who we believe to be a lap down.
He is indeed.
Yeah. Too bad, because I'm unsure how he got to be a lap down, but here we go. Here's the lead, and it's that simple. See the smoke coming off Earnhardt's tire? That's how hard he buries that car into the turn. Nothing wrong with it. He just is pushing it so hard the tire smokes.
Well, Wallace is going to be a little bit stubborn here as he went door handle to door handle down the front straight with Earnhardt, and now chases him onto the back straight, but now Dale is clear and has gotten back into the lead.
There's a game here. I mean, Earnhardt wants to look superior. He wants to rub it into the minds of these men that he's passing now that he is superior and he can just blow by them. At the same time, he doesn't want to let his ego, and it is a euphoric moment, really. That's Richard Childress watching his man at work. It's a euphoric moment for a driver to be able to handle with such consummate ease the men who, you know, day in and day out are the guys he has to beat. Now he's lined up behind Terry Labonte in the Junior Johnson car there, and he'll pick him off too, one assumes. But of course, Earnhardt, I mean, boy, would he have mud on his face if for some reason he let his ego run away with him at this point, and he blew it passing one of these men.
Well, that's the kind of thing that a lot of people might have accused him of being capable of 6 or 7 years ago. But I don't think too many people would make that argument now. And now he gets clear of Labonte, so there is nothing but clean air for the moment in front of Dale Earnhardt. And we go back down to Jerry Gappens with Earnhardt's car owner, Richard Childress.
Richard, you made 2 stops during that last yellow. The last stop, just to splash some more fuel in. You have 60 laps to go on that tank of gas. Can you make it?
Yeah, we can make it now. We just wanted to be safe. We thought we could make it before, but wasn't no need in gambling right now.
You've been talking to the NASCAR Winston Cup official. What have you been talking to him about? Is there a problem?
No, we just wanted to know how far up we could go on the restart, and we wanted to know when they were going to give the 1 to go.
What's Dale saying on the radio right now? Is he feeling pretty comfortable?
Well, the car seems to be doing pretty good right now. You know, he hadn't said that. We made a couple of adjustments that seemed to help it a little bit.
Okay, Richard Childress, everything looks good in Dale Earnhardt's pit.
You can say that again as Earnhardt cruises with the lead out on the racetrack. Don't go away. We may have a special treat coming up. We do have one outstanding, entertaining discussion of turkey farming, which was taped a few days ago between fellow race broadcaster Jack Arute and Cale Yarborough. We're not going to show you that just yet, but I did want to mention it as Earnhardt slows down. Earnhardt has suddenly suffered some mishap out on the track, and he slows down precipitously. And what do you think's happened, Sam?
No idea. You don't see the smoke that would be the obvious indication of an engine problem. It could be a driveline problem, a half shaft at the back, a clutch, but it's sudden and it's swift. And now the men that he just humiliated as he drove by them are going to be the men who will dispute the lead. It might be ignition, it's some engine problem probably, but not a blown engine in the regular sense.
Well, you never count your chickens before they're hatched in stock car racing, and Rusty Wallace and Benny Parsons have a great deal to race for right now, as those are the 2 cars which suddenly occupy first and second place. Car number 27, Rusty Wallace, 1984 Rookie of the Year, as he won 2 races last year and has really made his way through the ranks to become one of the brightest young stars on the circuit. He battles now with the great veteran Benny Parsons. Meanwhile, in the Earnhardt pit, that crew goes to work, and let's go to Jerry Gappens.
The crew working behind me. The engine is dead on Dale Earnhardt's car. A tough break. We were talking about it just a few moments ago. Everything seemed perfect. As Sam Posey mentioned earlier, that's part of racing. Now they're trying to push the car. It's still not under power. Dale Earnhardt now gets fired to life. He's off, but it could have cost him the race, it looks like, here today at Atlanta. A race that looked like it was in the bag.
Well, he's going to go a lap down, and meanwhile, there's a spin on the back straight, and the yellow flag will come out. Now, it may have come out too late to help Dale Earnhardt. In fact, I believe it did. Petty was involved in that spin.
So was Cale Yarborough. So we may, if we're lucky, have another look at that from inside Cale's car in moments. First, let's have a look at it from the outside as Richard Petty gets back underway. Petty at the time running, he's got a bad misalignment of his front end now. That right front wheel, Jim, is badly towed out, it's called. It would be impossible to drive at any speed with the car in that condition.
There were 3 cars involved. Apparently, Petty, Jeff Bodine, number 5, and Cale Yarborough, number 29. Now, here's a look at what happened as they went into turn 3.
Well, we don't know what triggered it, but we sure see Bodine, Petty in the center, and Yarborough on the left, all thoroughly out of control at this point. Ooh.
And now let's take another look from inside Cale Yarborough's car, where our ABC race cam is mounted.
Now, you think of that incident that Cale was involved with earlier in the day, and you realize just how busy a 500-mile race a man can have out there. Here's Cale. He's right on. He touches Petty. Well, folks, you saw it. Richard Petty got a tiny bit sideways, and Cale was so close that he tapped him in the left rear. How about that? And those 2 cars, pretty much on the same trajectory, stayed very close together all the way through their spins.
And meanwhile, behind Cale, Jeff Bodine's car was folding up onto the rear end of the Yarborough car, number 29.
Well, well, well. That's
There's
what
Cale's car.
you know, you watch lap after lap of close racing. And, you know, the consummate skill of these drivers convinces you that maybe nothing's ever going to go wrong. And then you realize the slightest miscue, Petty getting a little wide in the turn, a little too much slide, which slowed him up. That slide that Petty got into slowed him up enough for Yarborough to hit him.
And
Here's
you
Petty.
wonder that it doesn't happen more often as you look at the king, Richard Petty, back out on the track in car number 43. Yarborough's car is in the pit. Remains to be seen whether he'll be able to get back out onto the racetrack. Don't know yet exactly what has been done with Bodine's car number 5. It's in the pit too. We'll be back in a moment. We are back live in Atlanta, and as Alice said, curiouser and curiouser. Rusty Wallace, for reasons not yet known to us, slowed down under the yellow caution flag and allowed several cars, including those of Benny Parsons and Ricky Rudd, to move in front of him. And quickly, let's go down to Jerry Punch, Dr. Jerry Punch. Dr. Punch?
We've been finding out what the problem was with Rusty Wallace, and we are told by some of the NASCAR people here in the garage area that Rusty Wallace didn't slow down when the caution came out. They've been concerned about cars running under caution, and there is a penalty for that. The penalty will be put back to the tail end of the lap, so you have to fall all the way back in the field to the tail end of the cars, and you will be able to start the race back there without losing a lap, but you'll be put back in the field. So Rusty Wallace, along with the car number 21 of Kyle Petty, both cars being put back at the tail of the field.
Fascinating. So Rusty Wallace is not the leader anymore. And that honor now falls to Benny Parsons, 46 years old from Ellerby, North Carolina. Ricky Rudd will be the second place car number 15. Oh, what an old smoothie Parsons is. He has laid there in the weeds all day and may just have turned himself up a jewel of a race.
Benny Parsons lent me his racing car one time at Daytona so I could get the feel of driving the high banks in his car. At that point in my driving experience, the enormous risk that he was taking to let me do that, it just impressed me so much with the man's generosity and sincerity. I've been a huge fan ever since.
All right, and meanwhile, just a few minutes ago, we were talking about a potential third consecutive victory for Dale Earnhardt, who had dominated the race. Let's go to Jerry Gappens in Dale's pit.
Former driver Cecil Gordon throws the wrenches apart, away from the car. They just changed the die-hard battery in the car, a faulty battery, and they weren't sure if the regulator was bad, so they changed that as well. So ignition problems for Dale Earnhardt probably just cost him this race as he sits patiently in the car, the window net down. And so we're going down to our colleague, Dr. Punch, for the rest of this story.
Well, Harry Hyde is the crew chief for Benny Parsons. And Harry, it's been a long afternoon when you guys have kept plugging away, and now you're leading the pack. Can you hang on?
Well, I think so. He's been running good all day. He runs a lot better on used tires than he does new ones, and as the race goes on, he keeps getting stronger. Yeah, I think we're in good shape. I really do.
This is the man that carried Tim Richmond to 7 wins last year on the Winston Cup Tour. He's trying to put Benny Parsons in victory lane here today.
All right, thank you very much. Jerry and Jerry both have done an energetic job for us in the pits today. And as for what's happened here in the last 10 minutes, that's why they race 500 miles.
Yeah, if we had continued the metaphor of the prize fight that I suggested at the outset with Earnhardt and Elliott as the contenders, we'd be in the 13th round and they'd both be flat on their back on the canvas, I guess. In car racing, the contenders go out, but you get a new lease on life in the race.
Earnhardt goes back out onto the racetrack, but he is now at least 1 and probably as many as 2 or 3 laps down, and would not appear at this point to have any chance of getting back up among the contenders, unless some mishaps befall Benny Parsons and Ricky Rudd, and I believe those are the only 2 cars left on the lead lap now, unless Labonte has somehow climbed back up onto the lead lap.
No, but we're hearing Earnhardt's 4 laps down. So he's out. I mean, there are just too many guys. It would take a miracle to see him back. But remember, the way the championship is run all through the year, it's very important to be out there and score a few more points than arch rival Bill Elliott. So,
green flag, and they are racing again. At this point, there are just about 60 miles to go. 60 miles is not a terribly long distance when you're traveling at speeds of over 160 miles per hour. 5 cars, we are now told, on the lead lap. So Labonte is one of them. All right, let's run it down for you. Benny Parsons on the lead. Ricky Rudd in car number 15 in second place. Labonte in car number 11 is third place. Jeff Bodine in car number 5 in fourth place, and Bodine's car appeared to be partially folded up in that altercation with Cale Yarborough and Richard Petty, but he's back out there in fourth place. Rusty Wallace, car number 27 in fifth place, and that may be the most fascinating one to watch because his car had performed very well all day. And Bodine, we believe, is, slowing down. You can see he's got no hood on the engine.
You can count Bodine out of that leading group. I still question, we saw Wallace so far back. I don't doubt that he will emerge in fifth and possibly better soon. I just don't think he's that high right now, but we will see. Obviously, just as no one could run with Earnhardt when he was out there or with Elliott, I think that, you know, of the men that are there left now, and it has suddenly become a real event of attrition throughout the day. Only Rudd and Labonte have shown Parsons' speed. And, you know, now there's Rudd pressing the attack in second place right now. Labonte is a little bit further back. He is the fourth car in your picture coming around high, about to pass Waltrip, who's got that brightly colored car, but is a lap back.
So the 2 leaders have a little distance on the cars behind them. And you are looking at Benny Parsons on the left and Ricky Rudd on the right. Ricky Rudd, 30 years old, from Chesapeake, Virginia, in the car, owned and crewed by Bud Moore, and there goes Jeff Bodine back into the pits to have a little bit more cosmetic work done to a car which is not what it was when the day began. They're the 2 leaders now as they cross the start-finish line again on the front straight. Rudd has won 6 races. He's no stranger to winner's circle. Finished second at Rockingham 2 weeks ago, and Dale Earnhardt comes back into the pits. Earnhardt just finishing it out. Labonte has gotten by Waltrip, and now Terry Labonte begins to make up some of the distance between himself and Benny Parsons and Ricky Rudd. So you got Parsons in first place, Rudd in second place, Terry Labonte in third, all apparently still with a chance to win the Atlanta 500. Stay with us after this. We are back live in the closing stages of the Atlanta 500. There is the leader, Benny Parsons. You see the graphic which says that his last official NASCAR victory was on this track in 1984, 3 years ago. He also won a race called the Atlanta Invitational, which doesn't count the Winston Cup point standings, on this track last year. So it's a track that he likes very much. Meanwhile, just behind him in second place is Ricky Rudd, who has gotten off to a pretty good start this season. In third place, Terry Labonte, who was third in this race behind Morgan Shepherd and Dale Earnhardt a year ago and is a very consistent finisher. And in fourth place, it is Rusty Wallace, who has put his car back into the thick of things. Car number 27, Rusty Wallace. So 4 cars still with a chance to win the Atlanta 500. We have completed 300 laps. There are 28 to go.
And Rusty Wallace has been moving the fastest of the leading group since the track went green again. There you see the 4 leaders. We, of course, talked to Benny Parsons earlier. He said that at his age, you don't like to take too many chances. You've learned that if you stick your neck out, you're going to get it cut off. But surely this is the moment, if you're going to take chances, Jim, that you're going to put it all out there. And Benny Parsons still has the heart of a champion. And I think we're going to see that even if the cars behind him, especially Labonte and Rusty Wallace's, are faster than his, they're going to have a very difficult time getting by.
Now, how interesting is this? The third car in your picture is that of Dale Earnhardt, who led for most of the race. After his recent ignition problems, Earnhardt is 6 laps down. But he still appears to be the fastest car on the track.
Oh, yeah, it was purely an electrical problem, which once rectified, the car really should run as well as possible. I hope what will happen is he will do what he did a little bit ago when he was actually in the lead. He'll pass these men and get out of the way, in effect, so that he does not become a sort of wild card factor in the battle for the lead.
Well, I think that Dale himself will probably try to do exactly that, because he doesn't want the lead to be a factor in who wins or loses the race. He'd like for this to wind up as a fair tete-a-tete among the 4 men who still have a chance to win.
Yeah, and you know, the etiquette of racing is such that the NASCAR officials would not be beyond black flagging Earnhardt, who has really nothing to lose at this point, if he did become a nuisance factor among the leaders. You're just not supposed to do that. There is Benny Parsons, who, but somewhat because of what Earnhardt has been doing, you see, to Rudd and Labonte, has enjoyed a clear track and has pulled away a little bit.
All right, now here goes Earnhardt. He's going to go to the inside and try to go past Benny Parsons. Maybe not here, but probably somewhere on this lap. Meanwhile, Parsons is pulling away to a pretty fair working margin over the second-place car, Ricky Rudd.
Do you really think so? I think it was just that when Earnhardt was mixing it with Rudd and Labonte, and Parsons had a clear track, I think that's where the gap grew. I think that...
Quote a mutual friend, you're probably right.
I think if Earnhardt, and he's now making a very clean pass on Parsons, gets away, we will see that gap from first to second close right up. In fact, it happened even as I was just talking about it.
Yeah, good call on that part, Sam. You certainly have to wonder how Tim Richmond feels if he's watching this at home. The man on the lead, Benny Parsons, is driving the car which would have been Tim Richmond. We'll be back with more exclusive coverage of the Atlanta 500 after this commercial message and a word from our local stations. All right, the graphic speaks for itself. 20 laps to go. The -1 to the right of Davey Allison means that he's a lap down. So only 4 cars on the lead lap, and all 4 of them still with a chance to win the race. Car number 35 is the Chevrolet of Benny Parsons. Car number 15 is the Ford, driven by Ricky Rudd. And car number 11 is the Chevrolet of Terry Labonte. And car number 27 is the Pontiac, being driven by Rusty Wallace. Meanwhile, Dr. Jerry Punch stands by again in the pits. Doctor?
Well, this is Walter Bud Moore, one of the winningest car owners in NASCAR history. He's the car owner for Ricky Rudd. Bud, does Ricky have something left for Benny Parsons? Does Ricky have a shot at it?
Well, we're running real well right now. We're just cooling it, so we're going to try to get him in the last 10 laps. So we'll find out and see what happens.
An anxious Bud Moore here in the pits. His last win at Atlanta, 1978. Ricky Rudd has never won here at Atlanta Raceway. His best finish is 3rd back in 1984.
Bud Moore, of course, is of the era when Richard Petty was really hot. And he, like Petty, has been suffering through a long dry spell. He has persevered with Ricky Rudd, who was young, relatively untried when he joined the team. He has seen Rudd mature under his tutelage and Rudd's own ambition into a very, very fine driver. Rudd, by the way, not alone among the NASCAR men in enjoying flying and absolutely fascinated by it. The geography of NASCAR allows you to make real sense of owning a private plane. Elliott does, many of them do, and fly it from race to race.
Benny Parsons still leading. Rudd still in second place. Labonte 3rd, Rusty Wallace 4th. I'm pleased to say that we are not going to have time. We have too good a race to show you the dissertation on turkey farming by Cale Yarborough, but we'll polish that up and save it for next year, and I'm sure most of you will mark in your calendars that a year from now you may once again have a chance to hear that. Meanwhile, this is too good as Benny Parsons continues to hold off Ricky Rudd and the other 2 pursuers.
I thought that Parsons was not going to be able to maintain that lead in the sense of the momentum belonging to Rudd, the much younger man, who you see on the right of the screen there, or possibly to Rusty Wallace. Notice Rudd taking a line so high around the racetrack he couldn't conceivably have held onto the car way up there earlier. It would have been too dusty. Actually, there are some pine trees.
Blown engine.
More than that, it's the right front wheel. The suspension is broken, which means he may be headed for the wall down in turn 1. And he is.
Ulrich.
Luckily, Ulrich only grazed the wall. Had that happened a little bit closer into turn 1, that would have been potentially a much worse thing.
Well, but because it wasn't a blown engine and was in fact a tire problem, there will not be oil on the track.
Suspension problem.
Suspension
the
problem.
Suspension broke.
Yeah, so there won't be oil on the track. You see the sparks under Ulrich's car as the chassis scrapes the pavement as they go around. Both leaders have gone into the pits immediately with the yellow flag out. That's Parsons on the right and Rudd on the left. As you watch both pit stops, fewer than 15 laps to go.
This is when the communication between driver and pit crew is so crucial. If the driver's been in steady touch with his pit crew, when that yellow suddenly comes out and they dive in, they're prepared. It's not too late. They've got the right tires set out, waiting for them. They're prepared to dive into the back of that car and make the correct weight jacking adjustments. They're ready for him. If he hasn't been talking to him much, and here's Rusty Wallace, briefly the leader now, himself coming into the pits. If he hasn't been in communication, it may be too late to describe all that in the 30 seconds or so you've got before you come so quickly into the pits.
Now, where is Terry Labonte? The other three leaders have all pitted. I have not yet seen the number 11 car come in.
You see him on the track. Now, his car is managed by one of the most superbly strategic-minded men in all of the history of this form of racing, Junior Johnson. And I know that Junior Johnson has been waiting for this team to mature this year. Labonte has done steadily better in each race. He was 5th in the last race. He was 18th at Daytona. So he's been coming up. But what he's really been waiting for is an opportunity like this to use his fine-tuned sense of what to do when the chips are really down and to give the best possible car to his man Labonte.
You think he might leave Labonte out there without a pit stop so that they can start off with the lead when it goes green again?
Labonte is the silent man on the radio. He never talks. If he hasn't been talking to Junior, Junior may be waiting this extra lap to get a reading on what Labonte thinks should be done to the car.
Another lap under the yellow here.
But chances are, no, he would have come in. No, with the green coming up, they would have had to come in. So no, Labonte must be content with the car as it is, or they just realize there's such a tactical advantage in staying out. I mean, we're almost at the end of the race.
So Labonte is apparently going to have the lead when we go green with 10 laps to go. A calculated gamble on the part of Junior Johnson and Terry Labonte, electing not to pit at a time when the three other leaders, Benny Parsons, Ricky Rudd, and Rusty Wallace, all came in.
The last big race of the year, of course, which was Daytona, saw a calculated gamble with Jeff Bodine's crew deciding to stay out. That was a fuel decision that backfired on them. Now we're again seeing a team ready to gamble. It'll be interesting to see if it comes out.
Well, one thing we can guarantee is that Labonte has plenty of fuel. He's in no danger of running out.
Correct. Neither is anybody else.
Now, Sam, we have been accustomed in past years of NASCAR racing to according the advantage in late lap situations to the second place car because of drafting and slingshotting. That may no longer be as much the case with these cars as it has been in the past. Isn't that so?
Correct. You see them coming up to speed on the restart. It's never been as big a factor here in Atlanta anyway, where there aren't long straightaways as it has been, say, at Daytona or Talladega. Now it is even less. So no, I would say there's absolutely no question the racers want to be out front. That was probably a factor in Labonte's decision to stay out. He hasn't got the fresh rubber that he might want, and it's hurting him right now.
As Benny Parsons goes by on the inside to take the lead back. So Labonte is immediately snuffed out of first place by Benny Parsons, and now there goes Ricky Rudd. And so now the leaderboard will read Parsons, Rudd, Labonte, and Rusty Wallace. And Rudd goes to the inside to try to go by Benny Parsons.
The car that appears to be leading this group is a lap or two behind. Disregard the car in the extreme left. We're looking there at
the new leader, Ricky Rudd.
Rudd, who's steamed by Parsons.
So 2 lead changes in less than 2 laps. As first Labonte was immediately passed by Parsons and then Rudd, and Rudd went right on by Benny Parsons to take the lead. So your leader now is 30-year-old Ricky Rudd of Chesapeake, Virginia, gunning for his 7th victory as a NASCAR racer.
All right, now this is where the crucial work in the pit manifests itself out on the track. What exactly happened when the leaders pitted? What did each of their crew chiefs decide to do to their car? The tire changes, the changes to the chassis, the amount of fuel that was put in. this is when you see it manifest itself in speed out on the track.
Well, it's interesting that Labonte has now dropped all the way back to fourth, so if you're going to second guess, you have to say that skipping the pit stop was not the right idea. It is Rudd on the lead. Behind him, Benny Parsons. Rusty Wallace in the white car. And that graphic told me 6 laps to go. So when they come back around past the start-finish line, this time they'll have 5 laps to go. And they aren't 2.5-mile laps like they are down at Daytona. These are 1.522-mile laps. So the action is going to take place fast and furiously in these last 5 laps.
Now, Parsons in the lead is one thing. He might have been able to stave people off. Will Parsons have what it takes to try to make a move to pass Rudd? Probably not. More likely, Wallace experimenting with that high line there. You saw Wallace now on the right of your screen in the white car go up very high and then come down very low. Wallace is really experimenting with a very cool head, I would say, at this point. But if he has any chance to win, he's going to have to get by Parsons before he can get to Rudd.
Don't be misled by that graphic you just saw. Labonte has dropped back to fourth. The leader is number 15, Ricky Rudd. Dives to the inside of the track. 4 laps to go. Parsons giving chase. Wallace still in third place. Earnhardt now getting ready to become a factor again in the shuffle between those 3 lead cars, as once again he is pulled back onto the rear bumper of Rusty Wallace.
All right, this is when it's for real. I mean, there's no question that as Rudd pulls away ever so slightly, those couple of tenths of a second between him and Parsons could be extremely valuable to him. There's no doubt that everyone is going absolutely flat out at this point.
Second a couple of weeks ago at Rockingham, North Carolina, Ricky Rudd has been giving signs in early season that he might be ready to win a big one, and it may be on the verge of happening right here. You picked him, Sam, in a national newspaper to win the Daytona 500. Well, just about a month and a half early.
It was a little premature, but I've always been a big fan, and I thought his time was coming. That gap, though, it has closed. Benny Parsons with Rusty Wallace right in his shadow is not going to make this easy. Now, this is the old Neil Bonnet move, it's kind of called. It's become the Dale Earnhardt move recently, but is to try to break the draft of your pursuers by pulling across the track down the straightaway. Make sure they can't just follow you smoothly into the first and third turns.
Less than 2 laps to go, and they come back around this time. They will receive the flag, which indicates that there's 1 lap to go. And right now, Rudd looks as though he is in command. Benny Parsons going to try one last time.
But you see, Rudd is using up a little speed to execute that blocking maneuver. I mean, obviously, it looks really good for him right now. He's playing a tactical game. He has allowed, because of his blocking maneuvers, to let the other guys close up, to let Parsons and Wallace close up. But it may be very hard for them to get by, which is the key thing.
Rudd's Ford and the Chevrolet of Parsons and the Pontiac of Rusty Wallace. They'll come around out of turn 3 and turn 4 one last time.
Crowd on its feet. This has more life left in it than I thought.
Checkered flag out. Ricky Rudd gets it.
Well, what did you think? Did you think Wallace?
There is Linda Rudd. And there is Bud Moore, who has still another big NASCAR victory to add to one of the most glorious career dossiers in the sport.
I thought Wallace was going to make a move and get up into second. Did you?
Yeah, I sure did.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that Wallace had nothing more to offer on those last 2 laps. There's a good look at a nice man, Ricky Rudd, winner of the Atlanta 500. So we have seen an unexpected finish in a race that for so long was dominated by Dale Earnhardt and finally went to Ricky Rudd. We are back live at the Atlanta 500, and there is a look at final standings. Ricky Rudd, the winner in a race which was alternately crashingly dull at some times and then surprisingly exciting at others. And it wound up with an extremely exciting finish, which Rudd won by 1 car length. And right now, let's go down to trackside for an interview with Dr. Jerry Punch and Ricky Rudd.
Ricky picking up his first win ever here at Atlanta. First of all, Ricky, congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Jerry, very much. Like I say, I owe this one to the crew. The guys did a great job keeping this Motorcraft Ford up front all day. I can't believe it, really. You know, Earnhardt and Bill Elliott looked like they had the fastest cars all day. We worked on our car all day, crew did, and changed the car. And right there at that last stop, they finally made a chassis adjustment with the tires that made it just right. So I can't say enough of this crew.
The last stop really made the difference. Could you have run with Benny Parsons had you not got those fresh tires on?
I could keep Benny's distance the same, but no, I think Benny was a little bit better than me until that last stop. My car was pushing a little bit in the middle of the corner, and I couldn't quite get it to cut the center of the corner, so I told the bud on the radio and Doug Williams we needed a chassis adjustment if we're going to try to beat Benny, and they did a great job getting us back out there and making the right adjustment.
Well, again, congratulations to Ricky Rudd. Let's go back upstairs to Jim Lampley.
And there is a look at the man who finished in second place. 46-year-old Benny Parsons, one of the graceful veterans of the sport. Sam Posey and I will have a final word right after this.